Welcome to the world of Q&A, sir. I've come just in time to spare you from maths problems that I see going on in chat right there. But yes, I could use loads more subscribers. Please tell all of your friends, enemies, family members, strangers on the street, and anyone that you can to come along, subscribe to the channel, share things out and have some fun. I missed last week, which means there's loads to talk about. Loads to talk about. Just going through the usual list of things that I've played is going to take 17 hours. Not going to take 17 hours because I don't have the breath for it. But I've not spoken to many of you for a long time, which means, did I oversleep? No, it's 9 p.m. here. I was doing some science. So I started 5 minutes late, 7 minutes late, 5 minutes late. My apologies, KY. Please forgive me. But there was science to be done. We're here now. I want to know what everybody has been playing, what's good, what I should be playing, and I'm going to tell you a bit about what I have been playing for the last 2 weeks. Just to ease into it before we get to the big topics. Obviously, we can talk about, you've probably seen the news that Google announced that Stadia is closing down today. Yeah, shock horror. Nobody ever saw that coming. But that is happening. It is real. You've seen PlayStation's exciting customer service deal, which we can talk about a little bit. And we've got some other more profound topics around the breaching of NDAs, when it's okay to leak things, who are the bad guys and who are the hypocrites, and all those kind of things. So there's some fun stuff to talk about, I think, anyway. But let's start with games. My tweet made them shut it all down in shame. So we're not going to get into the Google Stadia thing yet, but just by complete coincidence, I took a rare foray into Twitter. I don't like Twitter. I don't go there often, but I just took to Twitter because I had an email come through from Google thanking me for my monthly subscription to Stadia. I've had this ongoing standoff with Google Stadia for years now, where I was convinced that they were going to cancel Stadia before I did. So I don't use the service, but I was stubbornly refusing to cancel my subscription. And I got my usual email saying, thanks for subscribing for the month. So I took to Twitter and said, I've subscribed to Google Stadia for however many years it's been. Ask me anything except why. And about 10 minutes later, Google announced that they'd given up the fight and they were cancelling Google Stadia forever. So the timing was weird. Fortunately for me, someone did ask if I think that Stadia was going to survive, what they could do to live on. And I did say they probably couldn't. I could have been immediately humiliated if I'd said I thought Stadia was going to be fine and people were overreacting or anything along those lines. No, it's cancelled. It's gone. It's a topic for later. We're talking games now, right after a word from our sponsor. Yeah. Is our sponsor ready to go? Our sponsor is, I can't remember how things work. 1 week off and I don't know what buttons to press anymore. Here's our sponsor. It's GameOnDaily. GameOnDaily doesn't have any money, so they sponsor me for free because it is my platform and Gaz's, but mostly my platform. News aggregation website, community, social stuff, really cool place. Still not enough people using it. One day, when we've got all the features that I want in there, it will entirely replace Twitter and everywhere else in the world, apart from gaming news websites and people that we're helping uplift and support. It'll be a great place, so get in there early and have a good time there as well. That's enough from our sponsor. Back to me. So, games. Let's talk games. I'm going to find some trailers while I go. Let's see if I can talk and find trailers at the same time. Damn it, I can't remember how to do anything. While I'm doing that, we do have a brand new OST, a brand new, pretty old OST playing in the background that has some relevance. Don't know if anyone here is likely to pick up on what that is or not. But we'll see as we go. And of course, a new background behind me as well, a bit of an action scene. Background is quite easy to guess for today. But you know how it works. You get imaginary points if you manage to guess it first. Perfect way to go. Tony, what are you talking about? You'll be flying out on your trip. Glad you stream. Oh, Tony, where are you going? I didn't even know you were away. That's how fail I've been on my streaming responsibilities. I should know what Tony's up to, but here I am not having a clue. Is it finally the trip to Japan? Metal HellSinger. I think I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that I just started playing that one. As games go, this one is a miracle for me. So I don't know if any of you have played it. It's on Game Pass. I've been playing it on the PC. I don't know how it holds up on the Xbox. It's quite a fast, twitchy game if you want it to be, but I hear people like it on the Xbox as well, so it probably translates pretty well. It is a Doom-like FPS that makes you play to a rhythm, to some kind of melodic death metal tunes. And it's really, really good to me. Like, it's really, really good to me. It's a rare game that the story that it tells isn't that impressive. It's not visually a marvel. It's all adequate looking, but there's something about this game that when you get into it, when the music hits properly and you get in sync with the beat and you're playing well, it's got the ability to turn my mood around, which is a vital skill that not enough games have. So if I'm not feeling great, I can throw on Metal HellSinger, blast through a level, and for the time that I'm doing that, I'm in a different place having a good time. So highly, highly recommend that if you can stand the music. And not everyone can. It's the whole growly lyrics that some love and some hate. There's a list of the artists involved there. But love it myself. Kratos, you played a lot of the demo and you enjoyed the music and the gameplay. I don't know why the gameplay hits quite the way it does for me, because second game I'm going to talk about, I've seen a lot of people saying that they like a lot, and I've struggled to get into it because of how good Metal HellSinger is. Okay, why are you playing Days Gone? You're impressed at how they got so many zombie hordes on screen versus the empty cyberpunk streets. I've played a little bit of Days Gone on the PlayStation. I can't even remember if it was the PlayStation 4. It must have been on the PS4 Pro that I played that. And the characters were too annoying, so I didn't even get as far as the freaker hordes. Days Gone is a game that can't use zombies as a name, and they call them freakers, which is just stupid and put me off the whole thing. But I am curious about other people playing it and liking it. Painful Discourse has been playing Skyrim. You get all the appeal, and its world building is second to none, but the combat is horrendous. Yeah, the combat won't get better. It's not a strength of the series, never has been. In VR, it's still not a strength of the series, but I don't know. People have builds that they like. Try. I've seen people talking about a stealth illusionist build. I obviously hate stealth, but the illusion stuff sounds fun. Hiding away and convincing the enemies to kill each other with magic and things. Try something like that to mix it up and steer clear of the clunky melee. The next game that I've been playing is another one on Game Pass. It's another first-person shooter. It's another one with a very distinct aesthetic. Stupid word. It's a stupid word. It's Prodeus. Who's played Prodeus? I'm sure some of you have. I've seen lots of people celebrating this one. It is, again, I'll bring up the trailer. It is on Game Pass on Xbox and PC. It has this retro art style that harkens back to Doom very much so, and the level design and structure harkens back to those games as well, with the red key card and just general structure and way it loops around. And its kind of signature feature that makes it stand out from those previous games is its Splatoon blood, as I would call it. So I've not played the multiplayer. I've just seen that in the trailer, and that might change my mind on the game. Maybe I should give multiplayer a go. But the campaign, you can see when you shoot stuff, the blood splats all over the wall, ceilings, your gun, everywhere. That's Splatoon blood. And I should really like it, but I can't get into it after Metal HellSinger. It's just not quite got the pacing right. It's very simple to play. I'm only playing it on the normal difficulty, but it's very simple. It's not twitchy or fast. It's got a kind of droning sound to it as an audio track that it's obviously really hard to put yourself in a different position and wonder like what this game would be like if I hadn't come straight off the back of Metal HellSinger that I love. Metal HellSinger gets me into a zone. Prodeus doesn't. And it's not that it's doing anything massively wrong, but by contrast to a game that I'm really enjoying, it's just not hitting the right notes for that. Scorn has so Painful Discourse just said that Scorn has moved its release date today. It's been brought forwards a week. I think it's October the 14th that it comes now. Who's looking forwards to Scorn? I'm unsure about it. It's got its really distinct style, but it also looks very slow and methodical and puzzle driven. So I don't know how that one's going to land for me. Again, straight to Game Pass, easy enough to jump in and find out. Painful Discourse is very enthusiastically, I can't even count the number of exclamation marks there, Looking forward to it. KY says it's worth a look. It's definitely worth a look. I will give it that much. Shall I bring up a Scorn trailer as well? Why not? No, I've lost my mouse cursor. Too many monitors. Who knows where it is? So the Scorn has gone out to various influencers and people like that, and early feedback is kind of mixed. Some people are really enjoying it and some people are disappointed by it. I suspect that will ring true when it actually comes out. This isn't the most recent trailer that I'm about to bring up. It's quite an ancient one, but I'll leave it there. It's enough to understand. It's Geiger art style. It's pacing. It's atmosphere. The atmosphere is the reason to play it. You can look at it and go, "Oh, that's creepy. I want to explore that gross little hellhole of a place and see what's going on." But in none of the gameplay that I've seen is there really very much going on. So we'll see. Worth a play at the very least. Scorn. Tony says it's going to be dead on arrival. Speaking of dead on arrival, Tony, we're going to talk about Overwatch 2 in a bit. And I need you to be around for that because you're the only person I know that likes Overwatch. So your opinions will be crucial to the conversation. Scorn like a boob room. Well, now I want to play it. I didn't until then, but Painful Discourse has convinced me. So I'll give that a go. Let's crack on through my list. What else have I played? So if you've watched any of my gameplay streams, I haven't done one for a few days, but I streamed a few things last week. Let's minimize Scorn now. Scorn can go away. But these games, if you do follow this channel or just glance at the thumbnails, you'll know that I played them. One of them is Psychonauts 2. I'm very late to the party on Psychonauts 2. I've only played it once, only on the occasion that I did stream it. I reckon a lot of you have played it. I'm sure a lot of you have played it. Tell me about Psychonauts 2 and what you thought of it without any spoilers, because I'm only like a mission and a half into it. So far, I've been way more impressed than I expected to be by the visuals on that game. Because everything in the run-up to it, it was obviously compared side by side with Ratchet and Clank a lot. And the character models definitely don't hold up against it. But the environments and art really do. They were a lot more crisp and impressive than I expected from the game. And the gameplay, not sure I'm entirely there on the gameplay. I think the art and storytelling possibly make up for shortcomings in gameplay. Not every game needs to perfect every element, and I'm not particularly enjoying the controls on Psychonauts from what I played. I don't like constantly having to go in and rebind the shoulder buttons triggers and all of the I've only unlocked 5 or 6, but in Psychonauts 2 you get a wheel of abilities and you can equip 4 of them at a time. And the thing that really bugs me is one of them is called Levitate, and it essentially plays as a sprint. It's got a little bit more to it being a levitation thing, but it speeds up your running, so you want to use it quite a lot. And I want that to be on my paddle, but I have to bind it to one of the shoulder bumpers or triggers and use it like that. I've got the paddles you can bind to be whatever you want, so I could go into the Xbox dashboard and make a Psychonauts profile that lets me sprint with the paddle like I want to, like I do in every other game. But I don't want to dick around setting up control pad profiles. So that's my minor quibble on Psychonauts. The pacing is also a little bit funky. It took me a while going from I'm in a mission to I'm exploring a not too interesting Psychonauts headquarters environment before getting back into another mission. But I say this, like, I may sound fairly negative, I'm quite positive on Psychonauts 2. For me to want to play more of a platform game is fairly extraordinary, and I am going to play more of that platform game. So Peter Moreland, you think it's a slow starter. How long does it actually take to get through? Does anyone know? I could obviously open the PC Game Pass app, and they've got their integration with how long to beat now, so it would give me an indication of how long it takes to beat. It will take me longer because I'll go back to it and I will have forgotten how everything works. But I am going to go back to it, and I am probably going to keep streaming that one. It's also the main reason that I went on to Psychonauts. It's been on my backlog for a long time, as like everybody loves Psychonauts, so I should play it. And the thing that prompted me to move it up the backlog and get onto it is that it's colourful. So I've been, like many people lately, I've moved most of my streams from Twitch over to YouTube, so they're on this channel now. which coincide. A few things coincided to make that happen, and one of them is that OBS, the broadcasting software that almost everybody uses to stream, had an update to allow for HDR streaming. So my Psychonauts 2 stream has nicely represented colors and things. It was a good test case for that. 20 hours, quite long for me. It will take me a long time to get through, because sticking with a game for that long is hard, but I did enjoy it. I liked what I've seen of it. The missions that I have done were they were fun. Not so much in the moment-to-moment gameplay, but just, again, atmosphere, environment, and general. What's the word? It's just quite creative. So I want to see more of it. I need my coffee. KY, definitely not. Mario is my next target after Stadia. I've outlasted Stadia. Now I just need to stubbornly outlast Mario somehow. I still have no understanding of this enemy. I don't know how Mario has survived as long as it has. So I'm not sure I'm going to win that battle. But yes. That is... Yeah. What else have I played? Inscryption. Inscryption. Has anyone heard of Inscryption? Has anyone played Inscryption? Inscryption launched maybe a couple of years ago on PC. It's a roguelike card, maybe slightly deck building / escape room puzzle game that is very dark. It's definitely not a looker. Like it's quite hard to see what's going on. I was very conscious when I was streaming it that people might not actually be able to see anything. But it is popular. It's really well received. So on Steam, it's overwhelmingly positive, I think. And it came to PlayStation, I don't know, a few months ago maybe. And I thought I'd play it there. And as you can see on screen, it's a deck building game. It's a card game. But I found you get these 4 slots that you can play cards into, and it feels fairly limiting and fairly constrained as you go through it. But it is quite novel in the way it delivers the story that it's got. So you have this guy opposite you is essentially your opponent and also dungeon master, who is kind of narrating the game as you go. And the cards, a couple of them are characterized, and they talk as you go through it as well. So the story develops in quite an unusual way and pulls the player into it in an unusual way, because when you do die in this roguelike game, your dead character becomes a card. Kaya Santi, I'm glad you're here too. Good day, sir. I saw a little bit of the podcast that you were on yesterday. I was dying watching that podcast, and I was very pleased that you didn't present yourself as a false prophet, a false technical expert, as so many people around you were. So maybe we'll assassinate some fake tech experts later on in the show, or maybe I'll be kind and save that for another time. It made you want to play Gwent. I've never played Gwent. Obviously, I touched on Gwent in the Witcher main game, but it never gripped me enough to get into it as a standalone game. I know card games are a popular thing. You're so glad that this came back. Hey, why? What's clever? Are you talking about Gwent, or are you talking about Inscryption? Inscryption, I'm holding judgment, because the kind of... I don't know how quickly I'll get into the escape room elements and how repetitive the roguelike side of it is going to get. Because as far as I can tell, not much changes between playthroughs, and that's a roguelike problem for me. So you don't have object permanence, so you thought that I was gone forever. Wait, where did I go? Tell me more about Inscryption, people, though, if you've played it or if it appeals to you. So Gwent is obviously Gwent. Inscryption is a game that I will go back to. I'm not sure if I'll go back to that one live or not, because of a few people have said that they're interested in it. It's a very quiet game, which means it relies on me talking, and as you can tell, I don't talk a lot. So pacing wise, I don't know. I don't know how entertaining it is to watch, but if other people are entertained by it, then maybe I'll do those ones live as well. Next up is 3 games that I've played. And I think some of you will have opinions on these as well. Just play it at night so you can sleep watch. I'm not sure how sleep watching works, but okay. It got so many awards that made you think it was a bit much. Have you played it? Have you played it, KSNT? Are you saying that it was a bit much in that you've played it and you didn't feel that it lived up to these awards? Or are you just saying that it was... What's that game last year that was overly awarded? Death's Door, where you see this enthusiasm around that just feels wrong, it feels misplaced. You can just sense that it's a weird circle jerk and not a genuinely awarded title. You've played about 30 minutes so far, you've not been able to understand why all the accolades. Yeah, it's got something about it. It has got something about it. Play the Metal HellSinger OST in the background of an Inscryption stream. That's an idea, KY. So the Inscryption is supposed to be fairly moody, but it's pretty much silent. It's very, very quiet. The Metal HellSinger soundtrack is completely DMCA free. You can play it on any stream you want. What I would look for on that is probably a version of the Metal HellSinger track that doesn't have the vocals. So when you play Metal HellSinger, the music is layered and you've got like a score multiplier, and if you're sticking to the rhythm and doing well, your multiplier goes up. And when you get to the top tier of it, 16 times multiplier, that's when the vocals kick in. So all of it can be played entirely without vocals, but rather than play through the whole game at an 8 times multiplier trying to avoid the vocals kicking in, I'd like to have a YouTube channel. And this isn't criticizing the vocalists on that game. I'm sure they're way talented, but growling it's fairly divisive. So I'd like the non-vocal instrumental, that's the word they use, isn't it? I'd like the instrumental version of Metal HellSinger's OST to play in the background of a stream or on one of these shows. That will be just fine. Next up, 3 games. I mentioned this, you watched Go Live at the weekend. I mentioned my first-person shooter experience, and that's still ongoing. Games with Gold in October 2022 was just 2 games. Yeah, Painful Discourse, that is true. Little detour. We mentioned previously, Microsoft announced that they were going to stop including any Xbox Classic and Xbox 360 games in Games with Gold. And they didn't say what they were going to be replacing it with, so it was speculative. We were wondering, are they going to replace it with anything? Are they going to improve the quality of the Xbox One Plus games? Or are they literally just going to give us less every month? And they have given us a resounding answer. We pay them for Games with Gold. They throw a bit of sand in our eyes and laugh at us. The 2 games that they offered, they have not increased the stature of those games they're offering at all. KSNT Bone Labs, I'm very, very excited about, and I haven't played it yet. For anyone that doesn't know, Bone Labs is the current virtual reality hotness, which might sound like an oxymoron because nobody likes virtual reality apart from me and KSNT, but it looks like a hell of a good game, and I'm looking forward to it. It's also highly moddable, so it's likely to prop up the virtual reality scene for a long time to come. You've just reinstalled your Index to play it, and it seems very good. So you've had a crack at it. Good. I will. Next week, that's almost certain to be a game that I talk about, do I? Runny nose. Sniff. Right. Back to what I've been playing. What are we on? We're on like half an hour into the show, and we're still on this opening segment of introductory stuff. But first-person shooters. Am I yeah, I've got some germs. That's fine. I'm a grown-up, and germs are tiny. This is going to be a long bite. Right, Call of Duty. Who's played Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 in its various betas across various platforms? And what did you think of it? I have a very specific problem with Call of Duty games and military shooters in general. And it's a me problem. I don't process visually, like the information that they present to me, I can't process. I just can't take it in. So if I have my team wearing army camouflage and the enemy team wearing army camouflage, I pretty much can't play that game competitively. It just doesn't work for me. And it's a thing that I do in real life as well. So if I'm playing football or soccer for you Americans, I very much need the teams to have distinct colours for me to be able to play that sport at all. It'd be the same in basketball or anything else. I don't know why. I don't know what it is. But if I'm playing like a casual game and everyone's wearing their own thing, so I have to specifically look at someone and work out who they are to know if they're on my team or not, I'm really slow at that. And if they're nice and brightly coloured, I can respond before instantly. And it's very much the same for first-person shooters. So I mostly cut my teeth on Quake 3 for first-person shooters, and Quake 3 on the PC was before the days of microtransactions and cosmetics and all of that, and it gave you the power to choose what your enemies looked like. So pretty much everybody used the same one or two enemies for every person that they fought against, and they were Tank Junior or Kill, who were two like cybernetic characters that were quite big and bulky, and with the right versions of Quake 3 you could change the colours of them. So all of my enemies in Quake 3 Arena were luminous green robot people with clunky footsteps, and I loved it, and I played it for years, and it was a great game. And it kind of, that whole vibe got taken away over time because of Call of Duty, really, where now everyone's stealthy, everyone's wearing camouflage, and they go across the front of you and you have to look and see what dot is above their head before you decide whether to shoot them or not. And I've spent time in like old Battlefield games and Call of Duty games viciously shooting a chimney that looked vaguely humanoid. Like, I can't tell. Like, oh, that looks like it might be a person. I'm going to shoot the crap out. Oh, it's a chimney again. That looks like a person. I'm going to shoot the crap out. Oh, no, that wasn't, but that was a person. And now I'm dead. I don't get along with them for that reason, which is... I don't know. There's not much that any of the Call of Duty developers could do. Does it have accessibility options to highlight enemies? The problem with that, KY, like, it should have. It's important. But at the same time, absolutely everybody would use it for an advantage, so I can't imagine that it's in there. Because you'd absolutely want to use it if it was. So, I don't know. So, I went from there, right, I know Call of Duty is not for me, and Call of Duty in particular is all quite close quarters, and there's not any particular way to orient on a map. It's like you've got like a map to look at, but there's nothing to say like your enemies should be in that particular direction or that one or that one. You just run through a maze of corridors and hope that you see them before they see you. And for me, with the way that I look at that, it's just not going to happen. I just die and die and die. So I went to Halo. Coffee. Xbox should bring back Quake 2 and 3 like on the PC. They'll do remasters like Quake 1. Yeah, I saw, very curiously, I don't know if you've heard of Quake Champions on the PC. It was their attempt at bringing Quake back, and it died a death, but it hasn't actually died. They are still supporting it with content and things. But it doesn't feel like Quake. I did play it a while back, and they've kind of blended some elements of hero shooters in with it that mess it up a bit. But I went on to Halo Infinite, because Halo Infinite, I can make my enemies illuminous green robot people, just the kind of people that I like to shoot. And as with almost everybody else, when Halo Infinite launched, I was fairly besotted with the gameplay on it. It played so well. It still does. It plays really well. I'm not competitive enough that all of the desync issues people complain about really hit me very often. So it plays so well, but they've still not figured out how to run that game at all for me. So I played 3 games across the space of a couple of days. I jumped into big team battle because when you don't really know what you're doing, you go into a bigger team battle and it doesn't really matter if you're crap. So I went into big team battle, and there's like, I think there's only 3 maps on big team battle. I might be slightly wrong on that. They might have added something, but there's a good map, which is the one that has the what are they called, the noob cubes that you can throw at people, and the jump pads at the start. That's the good map. There's the okay map that is the big round one, and there's the shit map, which is a shit map. That's just a shit map. I don't know how else to describe it. It's got 2 little base things at either end of it, and it's shit. And all 3 games that I played put me on the shit map. It did 1 team deathmatch, 1 of the stupid power cell game, and 1 capture the flag game. So I was upset by that. It also gave me a crashing loop, a connection crash loop. And this is something that it did at launch. I don't know if it's just on the PC. So I have played it a bit on the Xbox, but I mostly play on the PC. And it does this thing where it tells you, starts to load in the game, and then it says it failed to connect to the fire team. I wasn't in a fire team, I was playing by myself, but it says it anyway. Failed to connect to fire team. And then whatever you press, it tries to reconnect, and it just loops. Loading, failed to connect to fire team. Loading, failed to connect to fire team. And you have to quit out of the game to reset it. This was on the PC, painful Discourse. I don't know how the Xbox handles connection issues, to be honest. So I did play it on the Xbox as well, but I have it installed on the PC, so I was just playing it on that. I was just like, I have to Alt and F4 and quit out of it to go back in to find another game. And then I had to wait like 4 minutes for the matchmaking to find a game, and then it put me on an American server. So I gave up on Halo, not because it does gameplay wrong. I want to shoot those luminous green robot people. That's my kind of game. And Halo feels great to play when it lets you play it. But I moved on from it because they don't know how to do a live service game. They've got work to do. You had it closer to lunch. Yeah, it was around lunchtime now that you mention it. I know that's not what you mean, but I'm running with it. I gave it a lunchtime play. And had that trouble. So I still think there's a fair chance that I might go back to Halo Infinite again when they do some kind of content drop. But it is disappointing the way that they're running it as a service, or not running it as a service, as it were. And there is a very limited amount of content in there, which will all hopefully change when Forge drops and all the rest of it. So we'll see. I'm not one of these people that hates on it for the sake of hating on it. I want Halo to be fun. It almost is. But then what I did was something really unexpected, and that was try Battlefield. I've never liked Battlefield games. I've always admired Battlefield games from a distance because they're massive, and you go into a Battlefield game and there's all kinds of shit going on. And I've always been really impressed, and I've never had any fun. For me, a Battlefield game has always been spawn, run across a field. Oh, I got blown up by a tank. Run across a field. Oh, it's the same tank again. Run across a field. Oh, there was someone just hiding in that bush for 20 minutes and they shot me in the back. And it couples that with the issue that I have with Call of Duty, where everyone's wearing camouflage. And I see all of these clips and I see these things happening around me, and there's like people jumping onto helicopters and blowing stuff up with rocket launchers and having all kinds of fun. And I'm like, those moments look great, but that's not what playing the game is for me. It's running and then suddenly getting killed in some ridiculously unfair circumstance. But this time I really, really enjoyed Battlefield, and I don't know how it happened. The issue that I have with processing things visually is a lot less extreme, because I think probably because most of the action happens at a slightly longer distance. So I can process it better, I can see a figure, and I don't know, it's easier to recognise who's hostile and who's not than it is on Call of Duty. And I was playing, so the different modes on there, I started off playing its rush mode and its breakthrough mode rather than its wide-scale conquest. And rush and breakthrough are, when I said that Call of Duty doesn't let you orient, so I didn't know where the enemies were going to be coming from because there was no particular rhyme or reason for what direction they would be in. Breakthrough and rush help you with that, because they put you at opposite ends of the map in the way that Halo is more likely to, and things make a lot more sense, so that I can get my bearings, know where I'm going, go and shoot some stuff. And I still haven't been in a tank myself. I still haven't been in a helicopter myself. I still run around on foot. But I had a really good time, and I played quite a bit of it. It turns out I've accidentally got the Battle Pass. I don't want the Battle Pass because that's not my thing, but it's included with the EA subscription thing. So I got the Battle Pass, and I played enough to get... I'm only like level 14 on there, but for a game that I don't like, that's a lot of playing. So Battlefield 2042, is a surprise inclusion on my things I've been playing in the last 2 weeks. Wow, we're still on things I've been playing in the last 2 weeks. The other thing that I'll say, no, so KY, I like first-person shooters. This isn't an unusual development. I'm not going anywhere near gacha games or those match 3 mobile games. That would be next. But no, I've always liked first-person shooters. I've always played a lot of them. I just don't so much get along with camouflage versus camouflage as teams. Or I guess it kind of ties into stealth in a way. Like camouflage is inherently stealthy and I don't like stealth games, so screw the stealth. I don't like being on the receiving end of it any more than I like doing it myself. That threw me. What was I talking about? I don't know. Battlefield 2042 though, so if you played it at launch, it was really, really bad. And like, not for the reasons that I normally don't get along with Battlefield games. It was really bad because it was notoriously buggy and there was all kinds of crap going on. You'd get in a lift and the whole world would disappear around you. I had no such issues this time. Like Battlefield 2042 is effectively fixed. It has a reasonable amount of content. I was a bit disappointed with the portal thing. So Battlefield made a big deal out of its portal mode that lets you bring like apps and modes from previous Battlefield games. But that's not presented in a way that I fancied giving it a go. But good game. I wouldn't go and buy it right now because it will release on Game Pass by the end of this year, I'm pretty sure. Give it a month or two. They might even be cheeky and release it right ahead of Call of Duty. Battlefield 2042 will hit Game Pass, will hit EA Play, probably in a couple of months. So wait for that and give it a go if you haven't already got it. Drink. Or I guess you've still got, it would have launched with a 10-hour trial for people on the old Game Pass. So the other drink is delicious red wine. Red wine is good for killing germs. It doesn't actually kill them, but it makes you feel like it should. No milk, Tony. Yes, painful discourse. Everybody, please do gently caress the like button. Take good care of it. It is all very helpful. There's still more games. I've still got more games that I've played, so we will get onto the topics. Like it is the plan. We'll get there. It gets the germs drunk so they forget how to multiply. Exactly that. I mean, it's not usually how getting drunk works in most species, but hopefully. 2 Point Campus. That's an unusual one. Is a curveball. Didn't expect to be talking about 2 Point Campus. But that's also on Game Pass. I had 2 Point Hospital was on my backlog to play for so long that it's actually dropped off of Game Pass now. It's not there anymore. But if you're not familiar with those, they're sim management games, very much in the vein of old Bullfrogs games. So Theme Park and Theme Hospital. Theme Hospital going on to 2 Point Hospital was the obvious link. And it's good. I'm going to bring up a trailer for that. So 2 Point Campus, if you've looked at it and you've wondered if it's worth a go, again, it's on Game Pass. You might have tried it yourself. You don't need a recommendation from me on this one because you kind of know if this game appeals or not. But wow, almost everything on my list this week has been on Game Pass. What a wonderful service. 2 Point Campus trailer. It's one of those sim management things, but you're setting up a university campus, which isn't the most appealing scenario for me. I'd much rather be doing a theme park or a hospital, mostly a theme park. I still want a good theme park game. But you set up campuses for universities and people do stuff, and it's quite nice, and it's got a reasonable amount of depth to it. It gives you fairly clear and concise goals to go and work through. And much as it's an accomplished game, it's not one that I'm likely to keep playing just because there are so many games to play, and this one is more of a, I don't know, it's just not my kind of thing, despite the fact that I spent ages and ages and ages playing Theme Park when I was a tiny small thing. But it did have, I played for long enough to unlock, so you have to unlock different lesson plans and build different equipment and rooms and things like that. I got as far as unlocking the virtual reality training course, setting up a nice VR campus for the students to go and play in. then I stopped playing that one. I'm probably not going to go back to 2 Point Campus. We'll never hear of that again because I'm not there, but it's not because of any lack of quality in the game. So if you like that kind of thing, have a crack at it. Actually, it's nice to hear what folks think of Game Pass games, because they may be games that you tried for 5 minutes and dismissed, but you may have missed gold. Yeah, nobody's got time to play everything. So we'll go through it. And what you can see on screen of 2 Point Campus is exactly what it is. You build stuff, you get your courses, you hire the teachers, you put in vending machines and all that kind of nonsense. You get janitors and maintenance staff, you get lecturers, and students will complain about things they don't have and things that they want. And if you have everything in place to give them a happy time and meet all of their needs, then they study well and get good grades, and you get rewarded and progress through the game like that. It's all right. It's all right. Did I hear the rumours of Age of Empire may finally have some console news? Painful Discourse, I've heard those rumours for the last 2 years, yes. I assume that what you're getting at is, so there's an anniversary for Age of Empires. I don't know, it's like 25 years since the first one or something like that. I don't know. So they've got an Age of Empires event of some kind coming up. Will it be a console release? I don't know. I don't know. Age of Empires 4 is a really nice game. If you've got children, you'll want them to play it, because it's like, it's presented as a documentary in a sense. So it's like a real-time strategy game, but it teaches you history as you go. And the presentation of it is really impressive, actually. I like it. I haven't played enough of it. Haven't learnt enough. Should play more. I don't know how well it would fit on a console. I'm trying to think back to what I did play of it and how easy it would be to manage what's happening using a controller. Obviously on console you do have that keyboard and mouse compatibility that they could add in there, but they don't release anything on console that doesn't work on a controller. And I don't know how well it would work. I guess we'll see. We'll see. They can release it. Kratos 70, one game that you were hooked on last month was Lawnmower Simulator. Now you cannot play it anymore as the stages are way too repetitive. Kratos, are you secretly Wayne? Has Wayne renamed his account to Kratos? Lawnmower Simulator, I have a little silly video on my channel playing that. It's not my kind of thing at all, to be honest. But the video is good because I put as backing tracks, just for maximum juxtaposition, the backing tracks that I used were the very famous Halo 2 theme tune and Skyrim theme tune to make it seem very dramatic. So Wayne, I don't think he's here right now, but he quite often comes along to these shows. He's a fan of Lawnmower Simulator and played it a fair amount. But it is cutting grass, which, much like Power Wash Simulator, I guess, some people find these things relaxing and just are happy to kick back and do something fairly menial, I would say, and take something from it. I didn't enjoy it really, but each to their own. Different games. So yeah, relaxing is the word, and I don't have time for relaxing. That's for the same reason that I can't really play 2 Point Campus. There's so many games that I'm more driven to play, that are more engaging for me, that I don't have time for a back burner relaxation game, which is what those are, and they definitely have their place for some people. Maybe one day I'll just sit and do some of that, but not right now. How about a poll? How many have a mouse and keyboard attached to their Xbox? It's nobody, Peter. If anybody has a mouse and keyboard attached to their Xbox, say so in chat right now. Or if you're watching after the fact, leave a comment and say, hey, I've got a keyboard and mouse attached to my Xbox and I use it to play XYZ. Tell us what you're doing with it. Lawnmower Simulator felt like a chore, washing every inch of the garden. Yeah, it's supposed to be a chore. Some people like it. I need more moisturising. What are you talking about, Tony? I don't need more moisturising. I need to just not... I don't know. Chicken or beef? What are you talking about, Connor? That's the wrong kind of question. Sable I haven't played. It's a painful discourse. You use a keyboard to chat. Yeah, good old text chat. Best way to be. Last game on my list of things that I've played. That's not right. I'm going to ask. It's the last one we'll talk about because we've gone through quite a lot. Half-Life 2. I played Half-Life 2. This was another one that I streamed. I didn't travel in time to when Half-Life 2 came out and play it like that. I played it because there is a user mod that turns it into an entirely virtual reality, proper motion controlled experience. So I jumped in there. I streamed that. There's explosive barrels that you shoot and stuff explodes, and it's fun. It's generally the idea of bringing pancake games into VR is fairly divisive amongst the VR content creator community, which is a real thing, by the way. There are lots of VR content creators that have their discussions and things they're interested in, and some of them quite rightly identify that games that aren't actually made for VR from the ground up can be a bad experience, and there's discussions on whether that means they should or shouldn't exist. But I can't say they shouldn't exist because I spend all my time in Skyrim, which is obviously pancake game first and foremost. There are many that are cool, and there are many that are bad experiences, but I don't think, generally speaking, many people are going to jump into VR and make their first experience a modded pancake game. You have to be in quite deep before you get to that point, so I don't think they really do any harm. Is an interesting topic there around what kind of content the likes of Sony need to be pumping out for PlayStation VR in order for that to be a success. And we shall see. You have a Corsair keyboard and mouse combo. You're part of the Xbox Insider testing the compatibility, and you use it to play Supreme Commander. You can't play Xbox 360 games with a keyboard and mouse. That's cheating. I'm surprised, actually. I don't remember if the 360 natively supported keyboard and mouse, but must have done if you can play 360 games with it. So good. General C is a beef enjoyer. Tony likes a big cock, apparently, so he says. Have at it, Tony. That's fine. You eat what you want to eat. Let's go on to the main topics. Who's tried Stadia? Let's start with the Stadia topic. I'm going through. I've got a notepad here of topics. I've been off for 2 weeks. I've got a little notepad. Go through the topics. Stadia and cloud gaming is the next topic. We've got the PlayStation thing. We've got my more profound topic on ethics and NDAs and leaks. Stuff about Overwatch. Stuff about Wrath of the Lich King. And the very last... I'm not even going to read the very last note, actually. Not going to read that. That's for my eyes only. Because it's insulting to some people. Google Stadia. Peter, don't pretend you don't know it. Everybody knows Google Stadia. Everybody knew Google Stadia. It's dead now. So I've had a subscription to Google Stadia for at least a couple of years. It is dead. Google have announced that it is dying. Stadia was the best. It's too bad that Google made it, so it had to die. Well, there's a few interesting things about how and why it died. So it was good. So capabilities wise, Google Stadia, if you paid for its pro service, could do 4K streaming with HDR and 5.1 surround sound, which put it leagues above the other streaming services, really. I don't know what the GeForce one does in terms of capabilities, but in terms of Microsoft service, in terms of Sony's service, it was leaps and bounds beyond what they can do, but not perfect. So whilst I say it did 4K HDR, it did 4K HDR in the way that a service like Netflix does 4K HDR. So yes, it is hitting those metrics, but it's hitting them via compression artifacts and things like that. So Google Stadia was never going to be as good as having a console or a PC at home, but it wasn't a million miles away, and for a lot of people it would have been good enough. Like Netflix is good enough for a lot of people that watch TV and stuff. If you're a real hardcore audio visual enthusiast, you'd watch your films on a 4K Blu-ray disc because quality wise it blows Netflix out the water. But like 200% of people are happy to watch Netflix. I did that because I couldn't be bothered to think of actual maths, but most people are very happy to watch services like Netflix or whatever other one you want to put out there, Disney Plus or the ones that are only in America and all the rest of it. People are generally happy with that quality. Stadia was hitting that kind of quality for games. And what it didn't do was have any content that people were interested in or give anybody the confidence to actually invest any money into it. So they started off trying. They had so Sony's Haven studio was essentially a Google studio before. Google were trying to set up first parties, they were trying to set up exclusive content, and they made certain deals with third-party developers as well. So games like The Quarry that came out on PC, PlayStation and Xbox, I don't know, a few months ago, last year, whatever. Supermassive's horror game was supposed to be a Google Stadia exclusive, and they let them out of the contract once they lost interest in Stadia. Essentially, they gave up on Stadia pretty publicly, almost immediately following Microsoft acquiring ZeniMax, which is where it gets interesting. Streaming games as they are today is still a novelty. So I played Stadia. Haven have already gone KY. Haven are a Sony studio now. They weren't owned by Google as Haven. They were owned, I can't remember what their studio name was, but all of the staff from Google's studio were let go and they formed their own replacement studio that Sony bought very quickly. So that's what happened there. Google Stadia got rid of all of their own developers like a year ago. Whenever Microsoft bought ZeniMax, they got rid of them. And they kept the service going, hoping that it would gain traction, but they didn't really try very hard for it to get traction. Until today, when they announced its cancellation. Playable though, it was very playable. I didn't play much on it. There's a game called Guilt that was a Stadia exclusive for a year. I played that on there. And then I tried the Panzer Dragoon game on there. In terms of latency and responsiveness, it was fine for both of those. In terms of visual quality, I'm quite, I don't know, fussy. I'm probably more fussy than the average person playing. I played those games and I didn't like things like the color banding when it was dark, like compression artifacts that I don't like when I'm watching Netflix either. And this is why I make the comparison so much. I watch Netflix and as soon as there's any motion, I'm not happy with the image quality anymore. But most people are. Most people are fine with the image quality of Netflix. And Stadia, to me, degraded in very similar ways to streaming services that you watch. But it was playable. It was instant. It was a good service in that sense. Google, it's a funny one because they actually, when they announced that they were cancelling it today, when they announced the shutdown, you can still play it until January. You can't buy anything anymore, but they are refunding everything that everybody purchased on it. If they had said a year ago, like, if we ever close Stadia, we're going to refund purchases, I might have had the confidence to buy something on Stadia. But they never said that, and nobody in their right mind would invest money into Stadia when everybody had the sense that it was going to die soon. The impending death of Stadia was enough reason that you would not buy a single game on it. And then it turns out when it did close down, they refunded everything that people bought. So people could have done. You could have safely bought, but they never told anybody that. And it would have been a weird message to give. Now, for Google to come out and say, don't worry, if we decide to close Stadia, you'll get your money back. I understand why they wouldn't want to publicly say that. But it would have helped so much in terms of confidence buying things. No, they're not only refunding hardware, they're refunding game purchases as well. I don't think they're refunding subscription costs for people like me that have been subscribing to Pro. But if you have bought, Cyberpunk's going to be the main one. So when Cyberpunk came out and was like a clusterfuck on all the consoles, there was a story that went around saying that the Stadia version was the best one. So some people will have bought Cyberpunk. And there will be a few others that people have bought. And Stadia did have a few fans that did invest into that system. But yeah, if you bought games on it, you're safe. They're refunding all of them. You haven't lost anything, which is a nice touch. KY, any idea how Stadia's latency is less than xCloud? It's funny. Do you know who delivered the most critical technology to Google? Pop quiz for anyone in chat. Like, who gave Google the capability to do 4K streaming at low latency? I won't leave this one open for very long because I don't know what to say while I'm waiting for the answer. So the answer, you've had long enough now. You've got it in your head or you haven't. Actually, no, I'm not going to. I'm going to say Orion. I'm going to say Orion is your keyword clue, and I'm going to look back to it in a couple of minutes. Not Azure, but you're not a million miles away. Kayasanti's there. The technology that was most critical to Google Stadia was a piece of technology called Orion that was developed by ZeniMax. So I would think it would be id Tech more than Bethesda, but it's Bethesda's technology. So a lot of people out there saying, why don't Microsoft buy Stadia's technology? No, they've got the minds behind it. They've already bought them. But Google owned that technology. It was Bethesda's Orion technology that enabled all of that and made that streaming service what it is. And I'm sure there's some nuance around that in terms of how much technology or how much you can put on Orion as like how fundamental it was to what they're delivering and how much of it is Google's own work. But it is a very important part of it. Bethesda did that. They're smart people. You think it's a non-topic, it's just Google being Google. Basically, if the project isn't fire after 2 years, they can it. Yeah, that's true, but it is interesting for the Xbox fans. It should be concerning for the Xbox fans that are also hoping the Activision Blizzard deal goes through. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to get cancelled, but there's a few things to consider. If you look at what the CMA said when they highlighted they're going to investigate it further, they talked very specifically about the nascent cloud streaming tech market. And it is a technology bracket that is in its infancy. It's not got anywhere. But it is one that everybody has said is going to be huge, Microsoft included, are anticipating that in 10 years or so, this is a massive, massive, massive industry. And the CMA, every other competitive regulator that's looking into it, are concerned for that, and rightly so. And what's happened here now is Google have put themselves in a position where they could reasonably go to the CMA and anybody else, if they're asked questions about whether they think this deal is good, bad, or indifferent, they can say, we, Google, massive tech giant that we are, chose not to compete in this nascent market because Microsoft have too strong a position in buying up third-party publishers. And that would carry weight for Google to say that. And the thing that makes it the thing that makes that so relevant is that Google and Microsoft are openly hostile to each other. And they take opportunities to hurt each other when they've got them. So if Google have loaded any kind of torpedo there, they are very likely to fire it. They are very likely to do what they can to hurt Microsoft, because this is the Microsoft that sided with Epic against Google and Apple. This is the Microsoft that didn't need to say anything, but stepped forwards to say that they think Google's Play Store policies are unfair and that they should bow to Epic and lose that lawsuit. So I can very much see Google speaking out against Activision Blizzard being acquired by Microsoft. And whether that carries weight, whether it stops it, that's a whole nother question. But I would say today it is a bit less likely than it was yesterday. It's not good for Activision Blizzard, but there's still Luna and GeForce and other ones, and Stadia has a stupid store policy. Yeah, all of that is true. Like, it's not... Google don't have the power or right to stop that deal from going through by themselves, but their position is relevant and it will be taken into consideration. So it could be quite a pivotal moment. And when you had last week, when you had Satya Nadella talking about how powerful PlayStation are and saying, let's have a competition, I said on Go Live, like, he's trying to keep the focus on PlayStation as the affected party here, because they're fine with PlayStation being the party. They can deal with that. If PlayStation are the focus of all of these regulatory boards, the deal should be fine. If the focus shifts and the focus becomes cloud and streaming and the future of that technology, then it's on less firm ground at that point. As of today, I'd be surprised if that's not a big focus of those investigations. But we'll see. Like I've said many times on the whole Activision Blizzard thing, I said I don't want to talk about it until it's done in June next year or whatever, because I don't overly care. I really don't care what way the deal goes, if Microsoft get them or if they don't. But today is an actual event towards that. PlayStation was first into streaming. Yeah, they got... I mean, between Microsoft and Sony, they were first. Obviously, OnLive and Gaikai or Gaikai, or how, I don't even know how it was said. The ones that they acquired were very early into the streaming game. The Disney deal for Fox was even worse. It was, but it's a different political climate in America as well. And I do think if the deal is to be stopped, it would be the FTC and not anybody else. I don't think the CMA will stop it or anyone else. The reason that it was only made to please investors with innovation and get funding and abandon the chip for the next thing. Not sure what you mean, Jizzaloop, but I will reread it in a moment. But yeah, that's the Stadia thing. So I'm not going to miss Stadia itself. I do think so. Streaming in general, though, when people say that it's going to be a big thing in the future, I absolutely can't see it going any other way. It's going to be a big thing in the future. Consoles and PCs are still going to be around for the people like me that are more discerning over compression artifacts and things like that. The same kind of audience that would get a 4K Blu-ray player, because you don't want to see things degrade in motion and all the rest of it. There will always be an audience for consoles like that, but there will always be a bigger audience who you can just wave something under their nose on their phone or their TV and say, you can play this now, just press a couple of buttons. That's a bigger audience, and that audience is going to take over. So cloud streaming is a big part of the future. Google pulling out of it is a significant happening. Competition in that space is important. So we'll see. Google always come up with something new. This increases Google's share value. That's how they make money. But it's the business model wasn't sustainable from the beginning and was doomed to fail. So Stadia, I still think for Stadia to have succeeded, Google were in a pretty good position to make it happen, and they didn't pursue it very hard. So Google own YouTube for one, and they own the Google search engine for another. So if Google wanted Stadia to be successful, and I do believe they did at some point, I don't think they set it up to fail in the first place. I get what you're saying about the investment that comes with setting up new endeavors, but I think if they wanted it to be successful, they had to put it under people's noses when those people were looking at YouTube, when those people were searching for games on the search engine and all the rest of it. Yeah, exactly, Peter. MP3 for the masses and FLAC for the people that have the ears for it and really care about quality. That's the streaming console comparison that I'm looking at. But if you'd imagine, if you'd gone to YouTube, if you'd watched one of my streams and you see me playing Psychonauts and you think, hey, Psychonauts looks good, and there was a button under the stream that said, go and play Psychonauts now, and you say, play, boom, you're playing, that Stadia would have had a future. If I was playing Battlefield 2042 and you go, oh, that looks fun, I can join your squad, can I join your squad? And I sent you an invite through YouTube, yeah, join my squad person that's watching, and then you just accept invite and then you're playing, that Stadia would have had a future. But Google have walked away from it. And there aren't many people that have a stronger position as Google to enter that market and do those kind of things. No marketing, no exclusives, no YouTube crowdplay. Exactly, Jizza. But they did plan to have They did plan to have exclusives. They had studios to make them, and they shut them down very abruptly. In a different world, though, who knows what Stadia might have become? And who knows what competitors are capable of stepping in to fill that void. And it is a void. Give it 10 years and that will be a significant space. Technically, only the consumer-facing aspects of Stadia are going away. Yes, that's a good point. So KSNT is saying there, Stadia as a brand for consumers is going away. Google are not pissing away the technology. They're keeping that and licensing it out as they can. So your Ubisoft or EA or anyone like that can work with Google and say, hey, we want to be able to deliver games through this streaming service. It's a white label service, so you wouldn't get Google's branding, you wouldn't get Stadia's branding necessarily. You just go onto your EA launcher, hit play and be playing a game without downloading it. So that is still a thing. You're absolutely right that they're keeping that and it's still relevant to a degree. But the consumer-facing bit is dead and gone. Phil Harrison quit. Yeah. So Phil Harrison was a quite well-known PlayStation executive. He quit after the PlayStation 3 launch. He went to Infogrames and Atari and they went bankrupt. He went to Gaikai and they got bought by Sony. He quit after the disastrous Xbox One launch. Then he went to Stadia and they closed in less than 5 years. Cursed man, albatross of gaming. Where will he go next? Let's find out. So if you buy games now on Stadia, you will play for free and also hardware will be refunded. Can you still buy them, Jizza? I haven't logged onto it. I'm going to log onto it right now. Let's see if I can log onto it right now. I can't remember. How do I open Chrome? I've lost it. Chrome. Play. Nope. This is happening right now while we go. Nope. I've not been on Stadia in forever. So I'm on Google's browser and it's not jumping out at me how to get to Stadia, which is evidence that they don't care about it, because really it should be right there as a key button tab kind of thing. Here we go. Am I logged in still for everyone? I've lost OBS. Look at that, new features, party streaming. You and your friends can now watch each other play, start a party and look for these icons. Okay. This is my Stadia right here ready to play. I'm not going to hit play on a game in case it totally screws up the stream that's ongoing at the moment. My library, claim all. Every now and again I just log onto Stadia and claim all of the games. I've got Hot Wheels Unleashed. That's the same game that's offered on PlayStation Plus this month. That's a nice little touch. Some other stuff I've never heard of. It's still there. Can I go to the store and buy a game right now? I've got £10 off my next game. Yeah. Do you reckon if I buy a game with my £10 off, I'll get refunded that £10 as actual money? Is that a free £10 for me? Stadia will close down. The Stadia store is now closed. I want my £10. Yeah, no, you can't go on and buy a game anymore. As of right now, they have gone. Wasn't that exciting? That counts as science. Midstream science. No free money for me. Right, let's move on. That's Stadia. I want to talk very quickly. This one won't take long, but you've probably heard it and probably expect it to come up. Let's talk PlayStation All-Stars and customer service. So, this one broke today. You probably heard a little bit about it, but in Japan, where PlayStation All-Stars is already a thing, and for those that don't know, PlayStation All-Stars is their take on Microsoft Rewards. So it's a loyalty program where if you buy stuff and play stuff on PlayStation, you unlock various things, including digital collectibles. And to be honest, the unlocks looked a bit crap from what I've seen so far, but you get digital collectibles. You might be able to get some money on the PlayStation Store. And the controversial part that's been going around today is that in Japan, where the service is already there, if you are a tier 4 PlayStation Rewards, PlayStation All-Stars customer, you get enhanced customer service. So to get to be a tier 4 member of the program, you have to sign up to the PlayStation All-Stars loyalty thing. You have to buy at least 4 games. And you have to earn 128 rare trophies. I don't know how they're defining rare trophies, so I don't know how hard that element is. But if you do all of those things, you are a level 4 member of the program, and you get priority customer service. You get to skip the queues if you've got a problem, which is controversial for obvious reasons, because it implies that everybody that's not reached that tier of a rewards program is getting substandard customer service, which to an extent is how the world works. Unfortunately, people that are spending more are generally treated better than people that are not, but a corporation can't be that overt with it and just come out and essentially tell people you're getting screwed over on the service. We don't care about you as much as we care about other people. And that's what Sony have done, and they are getting backlash as you'd expect. I don't know, nobody knows yet if this element of PlayStation Plus is going to carry through to the rest of the world. Given the backlash, it seems unlikely. But question for everyone here, has anyone had any dealings with PlayStation Plus? No, that wasn't the question. We need a new streamer, a new host for Q&A that can ask the questions correctly. Has anyone had any experience with PlayStation's customer services? US, UK, wherever you may be. And have they been good? Have they been bad? Have they been fucking awful and almost non-existent? That's my question. Because for me, they've always, PlayStation customer service has been laughably weak for a long time. Exactly, painful discourse. What customer service is? Kratos has never had an issue. That's the ideal. That's obviously what everybody wants. And I will say, so for me, my main dealings with customer services on both is Xbox have a decent refund policy. So I've had minor, not particularly interactive dealings with them, in that you can request a refund and it goes through, and in some circumstances they'll ask you a question about it, which is fine. That's good customer service. Bosh, done. I also had a lot of dealings with the UK Xbox customer services around the Xbox 360 era. You get no bonus points. Why would I have spoken to Xbox customer services in the Xbox 360 era? Okay, well, you got a quick game refund from Sony. You got a game refund from PlayStation. How? How did you do it? Was it Cyberpunk? PlayStation's refund policy is behind the entirety of the rest of the industry now. It's become pretty much standard almost everywhere that you get like 2 hours of playing a game before you can refund it. Even Facebook do this on Oculus purchases. Like you get a game, you download it, you play it. If you want a refund within 2 hours, you get it, no questions asked. Steam do it, Xbox does it. Don't know what Nintendo do, because Nintendo. But refunds are pretty much standardized. Everyone has a very similar policy. Yes, Texas, absolutely, red ring of death. I had 3 red rings of death, and every time I had one, Xbox were very quick and competent to send out packaging that I needed to send it back to them. So they'd send out prepaid packaging, I'd stick the Xbox in it and send it to them, and then they'd send out a replacement. And then I'd load up Elder Scrolls Oblivion, house would turn into butterflies, and my Xbox would die again. That Shimmering Isles expansion, that was lethal, and it just burnt through Xbox 360s for me. But customer service was always there to pick up the pieces, so I didn't hate Microsoft for all of their red ring of death failings, because they still treated me well throughout. I also had a PlayStation 2 that died. I had the yellow light of death. Only one. The PlayStation 2 was nowhere near as unreliable as the Xbox 360, but I had a PlayStation 2 that died. And Sony said, you can send it to us to look at. That'll cost you £50. If we find anything wrong with it, we'll tell you what it's going to cost to fix it. And I didn't like that as much. That didn't seem quite as good as the way that Xbox had handled the 360 issues. And I know that Sony were coming at it from a quite different angle, because they didn't have massive lawsuits pending and stacking up for their failure of a console like Microsoft did. So I know that Microsoft had to take more action, but Microsoft as an organization, customer service is more a part of their DNA than it is Sony's. If you can talk about companies having DNA, which is always a little bit cringy anyway, but Microsoft primarily work business to business, corporate sector, and they've got their shit together on customer service through that side of their business. Sony, by and large, they're not entirely consumer facing, but they're not business facing in the way that Microsoft are, and their customer service pales by comparison. So when Sony are locking a decent tier of customer service behind PlayStation All-Stars, I don't know what that means. Does that mean you can actually speak to someone, like they actually have customer service, so long as you've reached that esteemed level of loyalty? What is the deal with US customers for consoles only getting a 90-day warranty? I don't understand American law. It doesn't usually favour people, does it? In the UK, we've got a lot of things far from perfect, but we still get some decent protections for the time being. See how long those last, but right now... Gogglepie, you beat the heck out of your PlayStation 2. You had a lot of games, more so than any other console. Best of times for Sony. Well, yeah, it was a massive success for Sony, that console. And a massive catalogue of games that people love. So yeah, that's ancient history, but that's my main experience. My other experience with Sony for customer service is just that they don't have any. You can't talk to them. They're very difficult to talk to. Very limited in what kind of customer service they can respond. I can't remember what issue I had where I needed to talk to them. It was probably... No, don't even know what it was, but I gave up and didn't speak to them. And just... My understanding of Sony's customer service is that it's non-existent. Have a problem with PlayStation, you have to deal with it yourself. Very different to Xbox. And I'm not saying that customer service is like defining trait of what makes a console good or bad. I'm not going to steer clear of like PlayStation consoles and games because their customer service sucks. But it is a point of differentiation that definitely favours Microsoft over Sony at the moment. So whatever Sony do with their rewards program, they should tread carefully because they don't want to draw attention to customer services. The US has up to a year to exchange broken items in store. I think that would probably go state by state. Most interesting things in the US aren't federal. Without a receipt, cool. Don't buy direct though, Peter, is a difficult one because I buy everything digitally and you can't really not buy direct. If you're going to buy games digitally, you are stuck with Sony's policies or whoever else you're buying from. Hardware, yeah, I can't remember where I got the PlayStation 5 from. Probably like Amazon or something, I don't know. But yeah. What else is going on? That's PlayStation All-Stars. I don't have a whole heap to say about it. But I do want to talk about a bit that I missed. When a loyal fan consumer base is blatantly so important to these companies' security, surely poor customer service is shooting yourself in both feet. Surely it is. But they've got... Like, loyalty is important, but they've got a lot of hooks to keep people loyal beyond treating them well, is a sad truth. People like their trophies and their friends list and all these other things that keep you engaged with the platform. What do I think of Xbox buying a Japanese publisher? I don't know. I've long hoped that they'd rescue Sega. Xbox and Sega have a nice, like, dovetailing history that would make them... It would make them fit in a way that doesn't just feel like we've got money, we can do what we want. Like, they do have a good history with Sega. They made the operating system for the Dreamcast. They carried a lot of the Dreamcast's legacy forwards into the Xbox. And they've always worked with Sega. Like, they've got a strong relationship there. So I would be very happy if they went for Sega, because Sega need the help. Sega are a disaster of a company now, but they used to be so cool. So if Microsoft want to step in and get anyone, I'd hope for them. A lot of people talk about Square Enix. If you'd asked me 6 months ago, I would want anybody to buy Square Enix. Anybody at all. Like, somebody, please buy Square Enix. They are a disaster. More so than Sega or anything like that. They're completely inept and they need to be rescued. But as of about 3 months ago, that's not so true anymore. So much as they get reprimanded for getting rid of Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal, I think it was the right move for Square Enix to get rid of them, because their Japanese operations aren't completely incompetent. I've never like they've fallen off of making good Final Fantasy games. They chase Western audiences really badly, but they seem to be kind of realizing that and refocusing. So the current Square Enix today, making games like the Deerfield Chronicle and stuff like that, the Octopath Traveler games, smaller Japanese games, I'd quite like Square Enix to run like that for a while. So I don't really want Square Enix to get bought, because I want to see what they can do now that they've had that shift in focus. And like I say, 6 months ago I would have given you a completely different answer on them. I was desperate for someone to go and fix them because they were an absolute cluster. Square, you're pretty confident Xbox could use them more than Sega. They make games faster. They do make games faster, but they do make... I mean, Xbox needs to broaden and diversify to capture new markets, but Japanese RPGs specifically, and that is pretty much all Square Enix are known for, it would definitely fill a hole in their catalogue. But for me, I don't care. Like, Square Enix are already making those games for me, so I don't mind if they get left alone. The other one that people obviously talk about is Capcom. Capcom definitely don't need to be acquired at the moment. They're going from strength to strength over the last couple of years, but they have a lot of IP, they have a lot of talent, so I'm sure Xbox would be interested if the opportunity were there. What else is there? It's not really any other major ones from Japan, are there? There are obviously Koei Tecmo and Konami and people like that, but I don't know. We shall see. I'm not massively for or against Microsoft acquiring publishers and all the rest of it. Doesn't do me any favors. I know their games go to Game Pass. For me, it's a trade-off. Their games go to Game Pass and they stop going to virtual reality, so I don't win or lose. Xbox should buy Pearl Abyss, as in the MMORPG company. Dan Allen gaming topic. We're getting there, Painful Discourse. Thank you for the reminder. Where did that come? Oh wait, am I trying not to swear? No, I can swear. I've sworn a few times. If I try not to swear, I cannot swear. I am capable. I am an actual adult who can speak properly on occasion. Fuck that. This is my channel. I can say what I want. Dan Allen Gaming. So Dan Allen is the... What was the real insider, did he call himself? I was going to talk about this last week. It was going to be the main topic of last week's show, but then I had to cancel last week's show, so we're going to pull it over and we're going to talk about it today. So, quick overview on that one, because I do want to move on to that. It is quite an interesting topic. So, Dan Allen Gaming is a YouTuber. Assuming his channel is still up, he had like 180,000 subscribers or something like that. And he set up an alt account, a second account on Twitter called Real Insider or something along those lines, and used it to break NDAs. So his YouTube channel was big enough that he got some exclusive access to things like Metal HellSinger, and he got some inside information from Ubisoft about Assassin's Creed games and what was coming. And he decided he's like Gaz. He craved a bit of attention, really wanted people to like him, so he made an alt account on Twitter and leaked stuff that he had signed off to say that he wouldn't talk about. You want my KS Anti, you stick around and we will talk about the parity clause issue, but I have to be careful a little bit, but we'll talk about it. There are some things that you'll like, I'm sure. Yeah, a little bit like Gaz. Gaz likes the attention. He's polar opposite of me in a lot of senses, so I've always been... This is, again, off topic a little bit, but when we started all the GameOnDaily stuff, he always wanted to be on YouTube and I always didn't. I didn't want to be public at all. I was like, no, I'm going to hide in the background and never be seen by anyone. And that's my style. I've spent my entire life avoiding being seen by anybody. Gaz is very much like, everybody must see me all the time. So Dan Allen Gaming is like Gaz. Craved that attention, craved people wanting to know what he had to say on Twitter. Good afternoon, RWK88. Good to see you. Yeah, so he set up his alt account and he just leaked stuff brazenly. Like, oh, I've signed an NDA to promise that I'm not going to talk about this. Like me, I signed an NDA saying I'm not going to talk about Skull and Bones. It's shit. It's really, really shit. But he set up this Twitter account and he leaked all kinds of stuff. And then he got caught because he's an idiot, and he replied to something. So somebody had called him out on something on Twitter, and he replied on his main account, his Dan Allen account, saying something fairly trivial, but enough that people realized what he had done, spotted that he'd used the wrong account, called him out on it, linked things that he had been talking about on his main channel with things that he'd been leaking, and very quickly realized, this is the insider, it's this Dan Allen account, we know exactly who it is, we know his name, we know his main account. He's busted. And there was a big response across the industry from people condemning him for breaking NDAs. Like, why would you do that when you've got all of these followers? Why do you crave attention that much? You've signed NDAs, you're in legal trouble, you're ethically and morally wrong to do this. Apart from Tom Henderson, who, and I respect him for doing this. Tom Henderson leaks a lot of stuff, but he never signs NDAs. He's very specific that he's not going to do that because he wants the freedom to talk about what he wants to talk about. And he pointed out that a lot of the people who were condemning Dan Allen gaming were journalists who would probably be very happy if someone would break an NDA to talk to them. Painful discourse? Yes, I stealth through life. I tell everyone all the time, when people ask why I don't like stealth games, I say it's because I'm naturally stealthy motherfucker. I'm invisible in the world. I'm really good at real life stealth, so I don't like stealth games. Yes, absolutely. But Dan Allen Gaming, yeah. So a lot of people, and it's what Tom Henderson said was absolutely right. A lot of the people that were criticizing him for breaking an NDA would very gladly be that layer in between, so that somebody at a studio could break their NDA, be ethically just as bad as Dan Allen for similar reasons, but talk to them, and then they'd spill the information. No one would get in trouble, and they'd claim the moral high ground because they hadn't signed an NDA themselves. They're leaking stuff, but they never signed anything to say that they wouldn't, so why shouldn't they leak it? And then you've got the flip side of it, where if people do respect NDAs entirely, if they say, oh, Ubisoft don't want us to talk about Assassin's Creed yet, so nobody must talk about it, then you've got a branch of journalism that's entirely beholden and entirely controlled by marketing departments at big corporations, which isn't right either, is it? I don't think anybody wants, or thinks that news should be controlled by corporations and nobody should be allowed to talk about things. So it's a complicated topic, actually. It is a complicated topic, and that's what so Jason Schreier said that in his response to it when he was talking about NDAs. He was saying he doesn't break NDAs, but some of the stuff he says might not fit the cycle of marketing that corporations want him to follow. And I don't know, where do we sit? What do people think here? Are the people that take information that is clearly against an NDA, if you know that someone is giving you information that they're not allowed to give you, and you leak it, are you innocent or are you just as bad? And I will absolutely first and foremost clarify my position on leaks and stuff is I don't like them, and I never have. I don't find them interesting, for one thing. And it's not to say, like, I don't want to be beholden to corporate marketing cycles, but speculation is just the least interesting part of gaming. Like, it's not gaming, it's just filling time with idle chatter that I don't enjoy at all. But it is a weird topic. So, Spriggan, you don't see the point in Skull and Bones. Yeah, Skull and Bones, it's like World of Tanks and World of Warships, but with pirates, and nearly 10 years late to that party. I've not seen anyone compare it to World of Tanks or World of Warships. I would compare it to New World closest of all, but that's besides. There's a lot of people like Special Nick or Tom that you can go to. There are a lot of people that... Yeah. I mean, obviously you hadn't named names because that makes it a little bit more awkward for me. But yeah, people that will give anything for a bit of clout. It's not me. I could never be that. Whether those people are scoundrels for doing that, or whether they're innocent because they didn't sign things. I mean, they are legally off the hook because they didn't sign things. Are they morally off the hook? who's to judge? It's definitely not clear cut. It's definitely not like accessories to a crime, KY said. It's kind of along those lines, but is it a crime? That's part two. That's part two of the argument. Is it a crime? Should simple things like game development really be under NDA in the first place? Like, why are corporations so secretive over the games that they're making? Why do we need to wait and only get the news that a marketing department has vetted and signed off and chosen that is okay for us to hear? And this is the other side. So for people like Special Nick and all the rest of it, they know something and they're talking about it. Are they doing anything wrong? It's okay, isn't it? Should they wait until Ubisoft marketing says it's okay to talk about it? Why should we wait for that? Why is it controlled so tightly? And it's a problem that the games industry has made for itself. Like, the games industry is absurdly secretive in a way that doesn't make any sense. Because you can look at like technology. Like, there was Samsung was showing, and I think somebody else as well was showing the other day. They were showing a new kind of not foldable screen, but screens that extend, which were really neat. But that kind of thing, I'd fully expect to be under NDA because it's technology in a competitive market. And if you leak and spread that to other manufacturers of screens, you are materially damaging the company that are investing in making this. You're materially damaging them because somebody else will see those ideas, compete, and make it cheaper, better, same time, whatever else. But it's not fair competition at that point. There's very good reason for things like that, for technology to be under NDA. But games, you're making an Assassin's Creed game, is there a good reason why people can't know about that? Like, is it going to do you any harm? And you don't see it anywhere else. You don't see it in movies and things like that. Like, if you look at Marvel's roadmaps, they'll tell you everything that they're planning to make for the next several years. And they're not vulnerable to people leaking information. People will speculate on who's going to act in what roles and things like that, but it's not like, holy shit, guys, they're making a Blade movie. No, they told us they're making a Blade movie. The news is out there, and there's no reason for it to be secret. So it is a problem that the games industry makes for itself, because I don't see any reason for the secrets. Breaking NDAs is morally wrong, morally fine, morally complicated. Boobram. Well, I can't vote, but I'm definitely voting Boobram. It seems ratty to break your word, even if it's with a corporation. Yeah, I agree, Google Play. Like, I would not break it. I did break an NDA. I'm not allowed to talk about Skull and Bones, but that's not a serious NDA. Like, I'm not getting industry insider information on there. I was just in their technical alpha thing that I don't even know how I got in it. I didn't apply for it. I think it's just because I subscribed to Ubisoft, whatever, money service. They've had my money. I can talk about their shitty game. Some devs do have trade secrets, so you can expect them to try and protect that. Peter Morland, absolutely. When there are trade secrets, but most things that leak aren't that. But that's very rarely applicable in gaming. The stuff that's leaking is just like, so-and-so's making X game, X studio is making this. Like, who cares? Why is this stuff locked down in secret? Be open about it, and you won't have the massive problems that you've got trying to control information that doesn't need to be controlled. Painful Discourse, which Nintendo stuff? And the game industry has weird standards. It does. And the game industry having weird standards doesn't necessarily mean that the people taking things into their own hands are right to do so. It's just, it's complicated. Yes, it is. Everything is complicated. That's a weak source, way out answer. Your hot water bottle is leaking. Hooray! You have no problem with leaks or anything. You love to know things before release, like that Halo thing today about Battle Royale being 2 years out. Yeah, why is that a secret? Like, why do they not want people to know what they're making and who's making it? Who benefits from that? Nobody. So the game industry is weird in that sense. What else? What else is there on that? I don't know. What about you? If you were given information, would you be willing to sign an NDA to keep information secret? would you keep to it if you did? And this is where the conversation becomes simple again, because I reckon everyone here is going to say yes. If I signed an NDA to say I was going to keep something secret, I would keep it secret. I know I would. And I didn't sign on the Skull and Bones thing, if you're wondering. Like, nope. But it's just right and wrong. It's simple. And people creating a workaround or trying to get, I don't know, trying to be that extra layer and encouraging people to break NDAs. They are, I wouldn't say ethical in doing that. So, I don't know. Kratos, you just wouldn't sign anything. So if somebody were to say to you, I'm going to go by Kratos, I'm going to say you like PlayStation. If someone was to say, Sony have got a really big game coming just in time for Christmas 2023, I can tell you what it is if you sign this bit of paper, would you decline that information rather than sign for it and just keep it a secret? So that's essentially what the NDAs are in place for. You just say, no, I don't care. I don't want to know what that game is right now. That's fair enough. I'm not calling you out as a liar or anything. I'm just curious. So you'd just be averse to signing anything. You would decline. Fair enough. Is that because you wouldn't trust yourself to keep it a secret, or because you just don't want to know that yet? All Halo leaks do is further highlight that 343 still can't produce content in a timely fashion compared to other studios. Yeah, there's definite problems. And speculation's inevitable. People like to speculate and talk about things. It's just a part and parcel with enthusiasm. But eventually news comes out and you're pacing go. That's the other thing. It's a weird... like covering games and being this interested in them is a weird position anyway, because it's not the same as playing games. It's like a hobby in itself. And you're absolutely right. The news cycle and all of that it's overstated its relevance. What's really relevant is that good games come out, you play them and you have a good time. This weird insatiable need to know what's coming ahead of time, I can do without it, but I get it. People are like that. They crave knowing everything. Enthusiasm does that. I made you sign an NDA after this. Tony, that's breaching the NDA. You clearly haven't read it. You understand people want the scoop, but you're not like, yeah, no, I can wait. That's why I don't do, like, speculation is a lot of wasted time and energy to me. But to each their own. What else was on that topic? I don't know, that's enough. Does anyone else want to talk about Dan Allen's leaking some more? Or shall we move on? You get the scoop, but you can't talk. Well, some people would love to get the scoop and wouldn't care about sharing it with other people. And some people would want the scoop purely so that they could hold it over other people. And some people would want the scoop so that they could use it to get some more Twitter followers or something like that. I don't know. Nvidia are still goat leakers. Nvidia leaked everything that Sony are doing, that's for sure. So people not aware of that one, there was a GeForce Now leak that showed a whole load of games coming to PC over the next year or two. It was quite a while ago that it came out, but it very notably called out an awful lot of projects that Sony had in the works and a few others. Essentially, it was a leak that was accurate. So we know a lot of games ahead of time, ahead of their announcements. And did it do any of those games any harm? No. Why was it a big secret? Who knows? There's that video game Dunkey wants to be the next big publisher. YouTube star knows games a lot. Yeah. If I had loads of money, I would try and be a publisher as well. So fair play to him. He's made loads of money. He wants to use it for something that he cares about. Does he need to be an expert? Not necessarily. It's just funding stuff. Breaking an NDA is not only morally wrong, it is illegal, and you're breaking your word. Acid Fillet, I'm glad you're here, because you bet against me at the weekend, so we need to talk about that. Can't believe you said that. Can't believe you said that. You're right, breaking an NDA is definitely morally wrong. even more definitely legally wrong. That's the whole point of the NDA. But the more nuanced issue is those people in between, that in-between layer. If you encourage other people to break an NDA so that you can leak stuff that you haven't signed, is that still morally wrong? I think most people would go with the answer being yes, but there are an awful lot of people that do it quite happily. You say it, Donkey. Some indies get exposure, it's good at the end. Yeah, indie publishers are a good thing. I don't know if he wants to... I don't know... what's he called it? Big something. I don't know if his ambition is to fund games that are essentially... I don't know if it's an egotistical venture where he's got ideas of games that he wants to make and he's going to specifically try and essentially be a creative director, get those published with the right talent or whatever, or if he wants to genuinely work as a third-party publisher, scout around for ideas that other people have got and help them make them real. Either way, I don't begrudge him that whatsoever. So, yeah, he's got the money. If you don't know any of his content, he's very big on YouTube. His content's funny. He's been very successful. He's got the money. He can do things. And I'd say I fancy his chances more than Dr. Disrespect's chances on the game that he's making, but time will tell. From what you understand, it's publishing. Good for him. If I had that kind of money, I would want to flex creatively and get the games made that I have in my head. But there's no shortage in the industry of ideas, that's for sure. What's next? The funny bit was when Nvidia denied that they were accurate, saying that they were placeholder entries, and it's all turned out to be true. Yeah, there's nothing on that list that wasn't true, apart from... Was Bloodborne on the list? That's the only one. I can't remember if that was or wasn't. But yes, very accurate leakage. Next up, so... Nobody's identified the soundtrack yet. Bloodborne wasn't on the list. Good. Bloodborne is... I've said before, so I won't talk about it much, but people have been begging for Bloodborne upgrades for so many years. Where's the PlayStation 4 Pro version? Where's the PlayStation 5 version? Where's the PC version? Never happening. Sony have lost the password. Who knows? You can't hear it. It's not there right now. What's going on? It's really quiet. But I think it has been making noise at other points. Yeah, here it comes. It should be getting louder again. GogglePo has identified the game. Yes, Battlefield 2042 is behind me. Stuff is going on. It's not a real game. I went into the so Battlefield, you can go into a solo play by yourself with bots mission. I set the bots to super easy. They don't interact with me at all. I just hide in the building and record that scene that's behind me right now. So Battlefield 2042 is the game of the background for today. The OST I will leave a bit longer. See if anyone gets it. It's a game that I've spent an awful lot of time with, that came out this week and I've spent thousands of hours on it. That's your clue. Thousands of hours on it and it came out this week. Battlefield, I don't think it's ever been particularly grey. Maybe some of them. Older ones. Tony's going to be back. Right, let's go on to... Kayasanti, are you still there? Because Acid Flare is here. Kayasanti, I'm going to ask you, if you are still there, please give me a summary of what people were saying on Boomstick's show yesterday about Deathloop. Acid Flare at the weekend. Hagi came at us sideways with some nonsense, and you bet on him over me, which was a drastic error on your part. Drastic error. And for anyone that wasn't there, we're talking about Parity. There's been so much talk this week about who's holding who back in console space and what the parity clauses are between them. Painful Discourse, that's not true on Bloodborne. Lance McDonald recently released the mode that can run Bloodborne in 60 frames per second, 720, hacked on the PlayStation 4 Pro. He also clarified it's not much work. Yeah, that wasn't even recent. The user hack mod thing has been around for a while, but it is not the same as bringing the game forwards to a new system. So it might not have been much work for him to do that. I get it. Yeah, so KSNC, basically they think the parity clause is forcing Xbox to keep performance the same as PlayStation 5. That bit is a fair overview of where the conversation is, but I want you to tell me what they were saying specifically around Deathloop and FSR and all the rest of it, because I didn't catch the whole conversation. So I might have missed some things, but essentially there was a hack. When was the Capcom hack? Was it a whole year ago? It was a long time ago. Capcom had a data breach, and one of the things that leaked was their contract that they had with Sony, their marketing contract around Resident Evil 8-age, which is always what I will call Village. Resident Evil 8-age had Sony marketing, and the key things that people took from it were, one, that it specifically said in the contract that the game can't come to Game Pass, and two, that it has a line in there about parity, technical parity. So the wording in the contract is all about anyone, like any version on the PlayStation has to have parity with equivalent versions, brackets, except where like there's material reason that you can't do that. Essentially saying you have to deliver all the features to the PlayStation if the hardware can do it, and if it can't, then you don't have to. And people saw the word technical parity and got quite carried away thinking that this Resident Evil 8-age marketing deal is the whole reason that the Xbox isn't doing magical things that the PlayStation isn't. You would still be surprised if Sony does not do some shenanigans. Sony are sinister and evil for sure, but so KSNT was on one of Boomstick's shows yesterday with a whole load of other people. You had Wandering Dutch was there, Mag was there, Hargeet was there, Risk It for the Biscuit was there, Everborn Saga was there, and I only saw bits and pieces of it, but I watched it tearing my hair out at some of the things that were being said. Like, I want to respond, but I don't want to be rude. I don't want to respond and tear people apart, so I'm just going to sit back and wait. But what I was hearing people saying, some people in there, KSNT, Boomstick, Everborn as well, and Mag, were holding their hands up saying, like, I'm not a technical expert, I don't fully know the answer here. And those people I respect so much more. Wandering Dutch is here, thank you. Quite a ruckus going on outside my office. Curious. But people like that were saying, like, they're not technical experts, they don't know the answer. And there were a couple of people there who were saying, well, I'm a technical expert, and you could implement FSR2 by ticking a box. Oh, that office. Yeah. Wandering Dutch, you have me confused. Yeah, so on this show, every week that I do it, and this is episode 17, I go for a different background and a different OST, and people can just see if they can identify them. I know you play this game behind me, so you probably already got that one, but nobody has got the OST yet, so if you can pick up on that, I have given a clue. It is a game that came out this week that I've played for thousands of hours. That is the OST. But yeah, so the conversation around FSR was that you can implement FSR2 by ticking a box. So if Deathloop hasn't got FSR2, it's because of a Sony contract. And I was listening to this and seeing people present it as fact, and I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I will be, so Gaz sometimes refers to me as a technical expert, and I will always rebuke that. First thing I do, I don't like being referred to as a technical expert because I'm not a technical expert, and I don't feel that you should trust anybody that claims to be more of an expert than they are. So it's just important grounding. You have to be honest about what you do and what you don't know, so that people can assess what you're saying and take it in good faith. I'm not a technical expert, and I've not made an Xbox game, but I can tell you absolutely you can't just tick a box to move from FSR1 to FSR2. Here's a little quiz question for the audience, okay? If you had FSR1 in a game, if you're playing a game like Deathloop, you've not got loads of headroom, the frame rate is not quite reaching peak, and then you move from FSR1 to FSR2, Does your frame rate get higher or lower? That's my question for the audience, so you can take your time and have a think about. If you move from FSR1 to the newer FSR2, does your frame rate get higher or lower? And then there's more that we'll go into, but I want to know some people's answers on that. Depends. Doesn't. Depends if the picture settings are the same. Well, you're already talking about it being more complicated than ticking a box if you have to say theoretically, could, should, and all the rest of it. It's not about frames per se, it's more about quality and consistency. It is more about quality and consistency, GogglePie, but there is a correct answer to the question that I've just asked. Higher, lower, or exactly the same. Underlying factors or otherwise. Talking simplest terms, if you do a like-for-like change, I want to upgrade to FSR2. It's that simple because certain people have claims that it is that simple. You guess it should be higher. Going to tell you. And a lot of people would guess that. I think the way that I've presented it is kind of a clue that higher, lower, the same, or boobram. It's again. The answer is, I guess I should let some votes come in. There's some. I can't see the votes. You're going to have to tell me what the response is. But the answer is an absolute. If you do a like-for-like change, it's lower. The frame rate is lower. And I'll tell you why. So FSR2, unlike NVIDIA's DLSS, and I should give some grounding. People that don't know, so FSR is AMD's super resolution that is supposed to compete with DLSS as an upscaling technology. So Spriggan is saying that it's been notably worse than DLSS, but DLSS will park to one side because that's not available on console. So DLSS is NVIDIA's AI upscaling, and it runs on their Tensor cores, their dedicated hardware. So you can run DLSS, and it means you can run your game at a lower native resolution and it will upscale for free. Like, it doesn't impact your performance. FSR doesn't run on dedicated hardware like that. FSR runs on the shader cores of your graphics card. So it runs on the core graphics hardware. FSR1 was an upscaling algorithm. It was a spatial upscale. It was very cheap to run, and it gave you a certain performance uplift. So you've got these presets, you've got balanced quality, performance, and all the rest of it. And what that essentially does is it changes the base resolution. So if you have FSR1 quality, let's just say, let's just pretend we'll work in percentage for simplicity's sake. If you've got 4K as your 100%, if you had FSR in quality, FSR1, it would be running at 80% and it would upscale from there, and you'd get a performance saving from that. FSR2 would do the same thing. It would run at that 80%, but the process of upscaling isn't free. And FSR2 is more expensive than FSR1. And to prove this out, I've proved it out myself. I went on to Dying Light 2 today. So Dying Light 2 on the PC has FSR1 and FSR2, and you can toggle between them. So you can see the performance difference for yourself exactly. I put it on its high setting without ray tracing because that maxes out the graphics card. And I had, with FSR1 quality mode, it was running at about 90 frames per second. With FSR2 quality mode, it's the other way around. FSR2 was 90 frames per second. FSR1 was about 104 frames per second. It's a significant uplift. FSR1 is cheaper to run than FSR2. The difference, to answer your question, Acid Flare, is that FSR2 looks a lot better. So somebody said above that the point of FSR2 is more about image quality and consistency, reducing artifacting and things like that, which is true. FSR2 is visually better, but it costs more to run. So if you take a game like Deathloop, and I'm sure some of you have seen Digital Foundry's comparisons, Deathloop does not have masses of performance overhead on Xbox. It doesn't lock at 60 frames per second in most modes that are there, or it's 30 in the ray tracing mode. It does not have performance overhead. So if you tick a box to say I want FSR2 instead of FSR1, you're no longer hitting your performance targets. You've got to reprofile the entire game. It is not a tick box. And then you've got things like variable rate shading. I don't know if Deathloop in particular uses variable rate shading, but for those that don't know on that, it's another technology that's used for performance uplift. Variable rate shading is used to essentially diminish the quality of rendering in areas of the screen that you're not looking at. So things in the corners, things off the side, things that aren't the focus will be rendered at a lower quality than the things that you are focused on. VRS does not interact well with FSR or any other upscaling technology, because you've got this lower resolution and then you're diminishing it further and then you upscale it and you amplify those problems. Deathloop doesn't use VRS. Okay, so that's not a good example for Deathloop, but for FSR in general and things like shadows, yeah, exactly, painful discourse. VRS will reduce quality in shadows and things like that. But if you then upscale it with FSR or DLSS or anything like that, you amplify the diminishing of quality. Forza uses it and Deathloop doesn't. Cool. But generally though, the big argument, so Hargeek on Saturday asked for examples of games marketed by Sony with higher resolution than Xbox. And the problem with Hargeek's question was, one, it was him that had come with the ludicrous claim in the first place, so it was him that needed to prove it, not anybody else. But two, there are no games marketed by Sony that are next gen only. If you look back to the previous gen, the PlayStation 4 Pro and the Xbox One X, there were loads, Red Dead Redemption, Marvel's Avengers, things like that. There were loads of games that outperformed it on the Xbox, so his argument didn't hold up. But he specifically asked for examples for this generation, and those examples don't exist because there are no games that fit the bill. The closest one is Deathloop. And he went on Boomstick's show with Riskit, claiming to be technical experts, saying that the only reason that FSR2 isn't in Deathloop is because of Sony's contract, and that you just had to tick a box to add it. I was tearing my hair out. Because it's not true. Even if Sony have a contract in place, you can't just go and give false technical information and position yourself as an expert. So it's not simple. The other thing that you have to know with FSR2 in particular is AMD have said that it's available in Xbox's development kit, and I believe that it is available in Xbox's development kit. We've not seen it anywhere yet. It's not simple. Chaos Anti, I wish that I could, but I'm currently not joining any shows right now for the same reason that I didn't do this one last Thursday. I'm very withdrawn right now. You can have Hargeek there doing round 2 though, and you can present this information to him. He's very stubborn, so he probably won't concede, but present this information back, absolutely fine. And this is as one, so I don't really, do I have any questions? Does anybody have anything that they want to add on FSR as a topic, on parity clauses as a topic? The medium painful discourse, medium 30 frames per second. Oh, medium was Microsoft marketed, wasn't it? And so the medium had quite different profiles between the Xbox and the PlayStation. I think they put more of an emphasis on ray tracing for the Xbox, but they changed their mind and gave quite a different profile. So I think it performs better on PlayStation, but has a different visual preset to get there. Okay, Santi, you keep your secrets. I'm curious what point you have to raise, but you can keep those secrets, that's fine. Are you curious if FSR2 has any place in console games? It's complicated because if you wanted to implement FSR2, so again, let's change from Deathloop and go to Dying Light 2. So Dying Light 2 is another game. I used it on PC because it's got FSR 1 and 2 on the PC build. It's got FSR 1 on the console builds on PlayStation and Xbox. As far as I know, it's not marketed by Sony or Microsoft, so this is just a choice that the developer has made. Same as Cyberpunk. There's plenty of games across both consoles. So Cyberpunk was marketed by Microsoft, but it's got FSR 1 on Xbox and PlayStation. As for whether FSR 2 has a place, it might do, because it looks better. The problem that you got is it is more costly to run, so you have to reprofile the game. You have to choose. It might be that to run FSR 2 in place of FSR 1, you have to drop the base resolution, and on some games it might be that the final output looks better in those circumstances, and on some games it won't. It's just not a simple choice between them. The other thing that's a bit strange is FSR is known for running better on NVIDIA's card than AMD's. It's an AMD technology, but it runs on shaders and it runs better on NVIDIA technology. Consoles being AMD technology, it's probably fairly demanding. FSR2 probably isn't a simple choice to make. It is going to be cheaper than running something at native 4K, so there will be a place for it. But FSR1 is the cheaper option in terms of performance and resources. Technically, the medium was Microsoft marketed, and then when it went to Sony, it actually ran better on Sony's platform. Yeah, you're right, KSNT, in that it did. It's Microsoft marketed it. We don't know what Microsoft's marketing agreement was like. We know what Microsoft's publishing agreement looks like. It doesn't undo the argument in that it goes the other way. So I don't think... I mean, he's a raging Xbox fanboy, so he's not going to say that Microsoft are the bad guys in any circumstance. So he's not going to be arguing that way around anyway. But yes, the medium has a very different performance profile on PlayStation. Yeah, like Painful Discourse said. FSR 1 makes more sense unless you pair it with some of the other upcoming tools. Maybe. It's not always. It's going to be a choice. There will be times when FSR 2 makes sense. Your English is absolutely fine. I wouldn't have guessed that it wasn't first language. You're making perfect sense. A little typo is no problem at all. Painful Discourse is picking up wife from train station. No worries. Thank you for stopping by again. There's not much to go. We've already run for over 2 hours, so we'll wrap it up soon because my chair is so uncomfortable. It's so uncomfortable. I need a new chair if I'm going to talk this much. You're still trying to hear the OST. I'm going to crank it up a little bit. I can't actually hear it at the moment, so I'm going to... I thought the clue might give it away. I thought the clue would get there. We'll do a little bit more. There's a couple more things to talk about. Let's talk about Overwatch 2. What is your first language? Cool. You can't apologize for your poor English when it's your first language. That's fine. That's fine. So Overwatch 2 has had a few things going on this week. It comes out really soon. First point of surprise, and I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. Overwatch 2 comes out on October the 4th. Nobody is talking about it as far as I can tell. And it's disingenuous to say that because social media and all the rest of it, you look at very small circles of people, and you can get a very warped perspective of what people are or aren't talking about and what people think. But I've not seen anyone talk about Overwatch 2. Tony, I hope you're still there because you are a massive Overwatch nerd. But what's happened this week, for better or worse, is they've announced measures that are coming into play for Overwatch 2's launch to improve the community and cheating elements around it. Acid said Overwatch 2 equals Overwatch 1. Yeah, so Overwatch 2 has a very unusual style of release for a sequel, in that it's replacing Overwatch 1, not in the conventional sense that more people are going to move to play the sequel, but Overwatch 1 will cease to exist, and you essentially download an update and the title changes to Overwatch 2. It's almost not a different game. It's more of a patch. But it's coming out. It's supposed to have a PvE mode. I've not seen any talk of what the PvE mode looks like. It's going to continue the competitive modes from Overwatch. It will bring some significant changes to the formula, but not many. The stuff that's been announced this week is very much around the composition aspect, though. So Overwatch had a very toxic community, and it had a big problem with people smurfing. People don't know smurf. PvE comes later. Acid Flare said PvE comes later. That's disappointing because that was core to the initial announcement for Overwatch 2 was all about the PvE content that was being added to it, like it's being repurposed as a PvE game. And now you're saying it's coming later. It really is just an update, isn't it? It really is just a patch for Overwatch 1 at this point. But there's a few things that they're doing. One of them is that if you want to play Overwatch 2, you have to register a phone number. You have to register your mobile phone to your account. And this is something that I've seen some people celebrate and some people curse, because Overwatch had a massive problem with Smurfs, which is people that get really, really good at the game. They get their matchmaking rating really high. They decide they're no longer satisfied with playing against other good people and getting their prescribed 50% win ratio that everyone's supposed to get in these games. They'd much rather go and stomp on people that aren't as good as them, which I understand. Like, I'm not necessarily a fan of matchmaking. It's got pros and cons to it. But Smurfs are worse. Smurfs ruin everything for everyone. So they get to their really high matchmaking and then they make an alt account. And this was almost entirely in the console space. It's not Deerfield Chronicles. I've not put thousands of hours into that. I want the Deerfield Chronicle, but I don't have it. You have to do some maths on my clue. Game came out this week. I have spent thousands of hours on it. And the big clue there is that doesn't make any sense. It's not strictly possible to spend thousands of hours on a game that came out this week. So that clue might get you thinking along the right lines for what it could be. Skyrim didn't come out this week. Grounded's a good shout. It could have been that. That could fit the bill. It's not Grounded. But you're thinking along the right lines now. No, I'm not talking in-universe time. I'm talking about real, actual hours of time. Isla, you might get it because you did do the thumbnail for this show. That's too big a hint for anyone that's seen the thumbnail. Peppa Pig it is not. So, Smurfs. Ruining Overwatch. That can't happen if you have to associate your account with a phone number in the same way. The problem was it was very easy on a console to own the game and then just sign into the console with a different account and log on and play. On PC you don't have the same problem because your ownership rights aren't as flexible. The Activision Blizzard store isn't kind. If you buy the game on PC, you've only got one account that can sign in and play it. You've got no rights to share it with anyone else or anything like that. But console, you had that flexibility. You can make another account on the same console. You can go and play with a zero matchmaking and stomp on people. So now console players and PC players alike have to register their phone. Smurfing will be eradicated, but you have to register your phone. And people aren't comfortable giving away information, which is something Blizzard should have learned, because there was lots and lots of controversy when they tried to make people use their real names across their games. People flipped and rejected it. Now they're making people sign up their actual phone numbers. They may have genuine, honest intents to never use those phone numbers for anything except proving uniqueness on an account. But people aren't too happy about it. So they will lose some players for that. Forgive you, you're old. Is it a PC or a console game? It is a PC game. Whoa, yeah, Goggle Poe's got the answer. Absolutely. If it's WoW, you already guessed that. If you already guessed that, I'm sorry, I missed it. It is Wrath of the Lich King's OST. It's also not a problem if you have casual and ranked. Acid Flare, yeah, that's a bigger conversation on matchmaking. Because most games still apply it to casual now. World of Warcraft, Wrath of the Lich King specifically, Wrath of the Lich King Classic, World of Warcraft released like 4 days ago or something. I've not played it since the re-release, but I played a lot of Wrath of the Lich King when it was a fresh game. Smurfing really destroys Rainbow Six Siege and Tekken 7. It is a problem. It's rampant in a lot of games, and the mobile phone thing will do a lot to address it. Just don't be angry. You can have all the points. You made the thumbnail. You got the answer correct. Well done, you. Everybody paid due respect to Isla for getting the soundtrack and all the other things that she does. It'll be pretty surreal going into matches and seeing names like John Smith, Bob Wright. Yeah, they're not doing that for Overwatch. This was something they did many years ago, right before they introduced the Real ID or Battle.net ID or whatever they call it now. Back in those days, it was because their forums and communities were so toxic that they figured if they make people use their real names, they might behave themselves in ways that people on the internet don't. And they're probably right. It probably would have helped, but people were quite rightly not keen on the idea, and it went back to the drawing board. You wouldn't have thought of that as an expansion release. You were looking for new releases of older games. It counts as a game. It counts. My clue was good, and Grounded as an answer was good thinking, because it could have applied there. I haven't played Grounded yet, by the way, so Grounded version 1 came out this week. You tell me if you love it. I'm always asking for the big recommendations. Tell me if you love it. I played it a little bit when it came out, like the first early access release, and it looked like it was going to shape up to be something good. I didn't like the 4 characters that you were locked into being, but The game looked good. The clue when given the first time is why you guessed WoW immediately. Ah, so you didn't get it before the clues. You can still have the points. I'm feeling generous. But tell me about Overwatch 2. Is anyone hyped? Is anyone more or less hyped as a result of the anti-cheating measures? The other difference, very key difference between Overwatch 2 and the initial release of Overwatch, is that it is now a free-to-play title. It was always monetized to crap in terms of costumes and things like that, so I don't think that necessarily makes a big difference to the game as such, but it makes a big difference to how easy it is to get on and give it a try if you do want to. It's a negative from Wandering Dutch, not interested in Overwatch. But you're going to try Grounded now. Google Play's going to check it out since it's free. Tony has abandoned us. So Tony plays a lot of Overwatch now to this day. He plays top 500 ranked matches and puts his content, his clips and stuff on Twitter. And I watch them. I don't really know what's going on. Overwatch is almost really, really good, but you have to put some time into learning it. It's a first-person shooter, but it's very much a hero game. The characters are very much ability-driven, so there's no picking up weapons or anything like that. You pick a character and they've got their set weapons and abilities, and you stick with them and you play in your team. And that is fine and appealing. The bit that always put me off of it is you needed to learn to a nerd-like level the audio cues for the heroic abilities. So each of the characters has their heroics that are like game-altering abilities that are really significant, and you need to really think about and know the counters to each of those if you want to be successful. And the characters announce them through words, so you have to listen to the audio cues and know what's coming, know when your whole team's about to get nuked, know how you're supposed to counter it. And that level of learning took away, for me as someone that doesn't play often enough, just made it a little bit like, don't want to learn all that. I like some of the characters, and I like conceptually quite a lot of the gameplay, but I didn't really want to learn those details. Tony, you're not banned from chat. I'm on top chat. Sorry if you've been talking. You probably talked about how good you are at Overwatch, and Google was like, no, he's not, and hid the comments from me. Did I play Team Fortress 2? Team Fortress 2, a little bit. I never owned any hats. But yeah, I did play it a little bit. That didn't have like the same concept of heroics, did it? It had heroes with their own weapons and all the rest of it. You said you were gone, but you're back. I'm glad you're back, Tony. Tell me, so about a year ago, Tony, you told me that Overwatch was dying and that it wasn't going to last until Overwatch 2. How are you? He dead. I'm dead. I died before Overwatch. Tell me how you're feeling about Overwatch 2. Is it what you want? Are you more enthusiastic about it now? Do you think it's going to be good? Or are you ready to quit your Overwatch life forever? Kratos played so much of Team Fortress 2 when it first came out. It was good. People just being drunk and howling. I can't stand listening to people. That was the worst part. I played Call of Duty beta on the PlayStation, and when you drop into a Call of Duty match, I can't remember what they call it. The party lobby is open though. I didn't go into a single game that wasn't irritating. Not because the game itself, but because of the people that were talking or playing their music. And it only took a couple of button presses to go in and say, like, just disconnect from that lobby because I don't want to hear that shit. But, what pain. Listen to people. Blah. Acid Flare, I didn't actually get much of that on the PlayStation side of it on the beta, and it would have been. So when I played that, it was when the PlayStation marketing rights gave them their exclusive early access, so it would have been just PlayStation players. And it was mostly filled with people that didn't seem to know that they were talking, that didn't seem to know that PlayStation had the voice chat open and that their PlayStation controller was a microphone. So it was just people like yelling at their kids or something and playing music and talking about how long it was going to be until they were able to go and get dinner and stuff. It's just like, shut up, all of you, shut up, I hate you all. Which is strong for people that are just innocently talking and not realizing, but hate is the path to the dark side, and I want to shoot lightning, so I hate them all. It was probably you, fair enough. I don't hate you. Can't hate you. Other topics, I don't have many. Wrath of the Lich King was the other thing to talk about, and it's on the thumbnail, so I'll talk about it a very little bit. I played that a long time, never liked it, never liked World of Warcraft. Has anyone here played World of Warcraft? Did anybody fall into that or any other MMORPGs along the way? Tell you about the Lich King. I am. So World of Warcraft, I played, before it came out, I played MMORPGs a lot. It was my genre that I loved. I played World of Warcraft's alpha or beta, I can't remember which, and I really didn't like it. And then I played World of Warcraft at launch, and I really didn't like it. And then I played World of Warcraft a couple of months later, and I really didn't like it. And I played World of Warcraft when Burning Crusade launched, and I really didn't like it. And then a load of people that I was working with started playing, so I agreed to play it with them. And because there were other people playing, I stuck with it and got some enjoyment out of it. Still a lot about it that I didn't like, still a lot that I would consider flaws, and still some pretty fundamental changes that I would make to the game. But I played it a lot because I was playing with friends, and that's how multiplayer games often go. Played it a lot and started towards the end of Burning Crusade and spent most of my time playing it in Wrath of the Lich King. And Wrath of the Lich King, for me, and it might just be because it's when I played, everyone has their own favourite World of Warcraft expansion period, but Wrath of the Lich King was my favourite when I played in a group, did loads of content, and had lots of fun with it. World of Warcraft Classic being a weird thing. A few years ago, Blizzard caved into demands to roll Warcraft back to its original state before all of the looking for dungeon tools and server merges and all the rest of it. To go back to a more traditional MMORPG experience, they released vanilla World of Warcraft, and they run it alongside modern day Warcraft. And it was more successful than they hoped, and they moved it forwards to Burning Crusade, and now they've moved it forwards to Wrath of the Lich King, and for the time being at least, they are following the trajectory that World of Warcraft followed, bringing out the patches in order, which is going to turn interesting soon, because the next expansion will be Cataclysm, which is where they started introducing the tools that most people consider ruined the experience. And to an extent, some people say that Wrath of the Lich King started introducing the tools that ruined the experience. Wrath of the Lich King let you take raids down from 40 to 25 to 10 people. Stream never. I'm not going to play Wrath of the Lich King. It's a nice question, but Wrath of the Lich King now, without people to play with, doesn't really appeal. I've got some nostalgia for it. Some of the zones and dungeons and raids and all the rest of it were good, but I've never liked World of Warcraft as a game without friends, and I'm not going to go back and play it now. I'm not going to invest that kind of time because I know I won't enjoy it. You're waiting for the singularity where vanilla and current catch up. In theory, that shouldn't happen. I don't think the classic line is moving faster, or at least not by any particular stretch. I don't think it's moving faster than it did the first time. So it shouldn't catch up in that sense, but it will catch up to a point where people don't like it again, and that should be fairly soon. Because I think Cataclysm, so the next expansion after Wrath of the Lich King, I think is where they introduced the Dungeon Finder tool, which is the key one that put most people off. It didn't put most people off. It's a convenience feature that means that if you want to do most of the content, most of the significant group content, rather than talking to everyone on the server and trying to arrange a group and getting to know people, you just popped yourself into a queue and it found a group for you and dumped you in the dungeon. Significant convenience feature that's good in some ways, but messed with the whole community vibe quite significantly of getting to know people on your server. And that comes soon. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if they'll just stop updating Wrath Classic, or if they'll push forwards with no changes and just watch everyone drop off, or how that will play out. And as I'm not there, it's not going to impact me really. But that's Wrath of the Lich King. It's on the thumbnail. I had to talk about it a bit. Is there no one here that played World of Warcraft much? You're a strange bunch. Everyone's played World of Warcraft. You like the Code Monkey song? A World of Warcraft. I don't know that. I'll take your word for it. Gogglepo played a lot of MMOs, still plays Guild Wars 2 and Elder Scrolls Online off and on. I played a little bit of Guild Wars 2 on streams and stuff with Isla fairly recently, probably in the last year or so, but it's a bit too candy. Daily log on rewards everywhere and buy stuff, and everyone running around with armor on glowy fire. I think that's just a bit too mature in its life cycle to get into at the moment. And Elder Scrolls Online, I almost really liked it. It had a very different filter. So World of Warcraft redefined MMORPGs and what they are and how they play out, and defined, like, people call them theme park. So rather than being open sandbox games, they became a game of follow the quest marker. Elder Scrolls Online managed to break out of that to a degree and had a much more calm, exploratory feel to it. I liked it in that sense, but not enough to actually play it. Didn't really know anyone playing it at the time. World of Warcraft is like second or third in time played. Guild Wars 2, it's called Fashion Wars now by the hardcore, yeah. Which I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of being given things. It puts me right off a game. If I log on and it says, hey, you logged on, have a hat. If you log on tomorrow, we'll give you some socks. Then I'll refuse to log on tomorrow because I don't want to be given stuff like that. It's not what games are. That's weird compulsion loop drugs. See, that's fine. Jack can hear that. The real daily log-on rewards are the friends we made along the way. No, it's not a secret. Like, Jack can know that I don't like daily log-on rewards. Guild Wars 2, I like parts of it. The combat is really neat. Run for my life. No. The best part of Guild Wars 2 for me, it had an interesting world. It had, like, the playable races were fairly unique. I liked that, and I liked the combat. Like, it's relatively action-based combat. It's not World of Warcraft tab targeting combat. But the daily log-on rewards made me sick. You like Final Fantasy XIV because you can just play like a massive single-player Final Fantasy game, and the writing, characters and story put everything Blizzard has done to shame. Spriggan, they do. I've heard that. I've heard that it gets really good when you get to the expansions in particular. But I can't get over the fact that it's a copy and paste of World of Warcraft's combat, and the combat's not very good. So Final Fantasy XIV might tell a good story. I hear people say that it tells the best Final Fantasy stories available since Square Enix forgot how to make them. But I can't get into a World of Warcraft reskin. It's always like almost on my list, Final Fantasy, but it is also like creaking and old. So I don't know. Maybe one day I'll get back into it and see how those expansions play out. They were always threatening to revamp the onboarding experience to make the first like 50, 60 levels less boring and help people get into the good content faster. I don't know if they ever got around to doing that. If you have to be paid with rewards to play, you can't help but think that you failed as a game. It's just a little... So a few weeks ago we had a talk about compulsion loops, and if you're interested in that side of things, I can't remember which episode it was, but it was quite it was like a good discussion. But I find them fairly repulsive. They have the opposite effect on me. If I feel like I'm being compelled to play whether I want to or not because of things like daily logins and stuff like that, it has an adverse effect. It makes me not want to play even if I like the game. It's just I'm just stubborn and don't like it. Problem with MMOs is the time commitment. They're hogs sucking up your time. You still need to get Final Fantasy XIV. People say it has the best campaign story. Yeah, that's my place with Final Fantasy XIV and MMO games and the need. It would be nice if games can break away, particularly service games like that, can break away from this idea that they need you to play it all the time. Psychological manipulations don't make for a good game. Make a good game that I want to play and I'll play it. And if I don't want to play it like for a few days or for a week, that should be fine. Do that and I'll play. Stream quality on point. You can see my paws and nose hairs. You can probably see my nose running down my face then. And on that note, because I don't like being looked at, and Tony has now made me deeply uncomfortable, we're going to end for today. So I'm going to say thank you again to everyone for coming. Yeah, it's time to go. It's 2.5 hours and my butt hurts. My butt hurts. This is your favourite show. There will be another one next week. I don't plan to miss many. So I will be back next week. Go Live is on Saturday. We've got Blaze and BitCloud, so that will be an interesting conversation. There's stuff going on, things happening all the time. I will be doing more streaming on this channel over the next week or two, because that's nice. So if you want to talk about any more stuff, then just drop in and chat, because my streams are always like that. We just talk about whatever you want. And I will say thanks again to everyone for stopping by, listening, talking, all the rest of it. If you are watching after the fact, leave aggressive comments, polite comments, whatever you want. Say what you feel. And tell 5 friends to subscribe. Who's got 5 friends? That's a big ask. Tell 5 people to subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.